and your children are turned into mindless vassals who now they look up to some twit instead of looking up to Thomas Jefferson or looking up to Nikola Tesla or looking up to Magellan. I mean, kids, Magellan's a lot cooler than Justin Bieber. He circumnavigated with one ship the entire planet. He was killed by wild natives before they got back to Portugal. And when they got back, there was only like 11 people alive of the 200 and something crew, and the entire ship was rotting down to the waterline. That's destiny. That's will. That's striving. That's being a trailblazer and explorer. Going into space, mathematics, quantum mechanics, the secrets of the universe. It's all there. Life is fiery with its beauty. It's incredible detail. Tuning into it. They want to shatter your mind talking about Justin Bieber.
Hello out there. We're on the air. Happy Monday of the long weekend, everybody. Didn't know if I'd be doing a stream or not today, but feels like not a whole lot of choice right now. There's a lot going on in this space, and this one today is titled "The Darkest Day in Bitcoin History." I'm sure anybody watching this has a pretty good idea what we're going to be talking about. But we'll wait for Brandon to get here before we get too far into anything. I see lots of comments in here. We'll do our best. I don't know how long the show is going to be today. If there is any comments, any questions, anything that we can help with, just put in the chat. And like I said, we'll try to get through all of them. But yeah, I'm still not really sure what to think or how to feel about this whole situation. It's it sucks. I think that's the biggest thing. It's just devastating. And I was away for the weekend. Probably couldn't have picked a worse time to be away from it, or the best time. I don't know. It was nice that I didn't have to think about it for 24 hours a day. But it's unfortunate that I wasn't able to help people that needed it. And one thing so far, anyways, the Bitcoin that I have myself is safe so far. Everybody that I've talked to, I haven't heard from one person yet who's lost any of their Bitcoin, which makes me feel a little bit better. It's a big focus on this channel. And, Coldcard has been the hardware device that I've been recommending ever since I moved away from the Trezor wallet. Trezor was my first wallet. The MK4 was my second wallet. And it's been nothing but Coldcard and coinkite ever since then. And I don't want to speak for everybody. I know there's a lot of people talking a lot of shit online right now on Twitter and YouTube, everywhere. It's just, I don't know. I've lost some respect for Bitcoiners lately. And maybe I was a little bit too naive myself to think that just because you were a Bitcoiner, you were a good person. I think that that's pretty far from the truth. But anyways, it is what it is. And I think that where I was going with it is, myself personally, as somebody who's recommended the Coldcard for many years now, I'll speak for myself here, saying that it definitely wasn't for coinkite. It wasn't for a referral link. It wasn't obviously don't have any sponsors on this channel. It was because with the information that I had, it was the best product available. And kind of shame on me for. It's funny. Yesterday, I'm going to bring up Brandon here. Well, I'll tell this next part. Good morning, Brandon.
Morning, brother. Chat. What's going on?
Yeah, it's I spent yesterday. I got home late from the weekend that I had, and I was trying to get my stuff in order. And I turned on my Coldcard, and first thing it says across the screen is "Don't trust, verify." And it was like, man, it was almost like they were trying to warn us for this. You know what I mean? Like a hardware device, it should say something about security instead of like, don't trust something, verify first, which is really what people should have been doing. And, like I said, I'll get your thoughts on this too, Brandon, but like, I think it's important to note that was never my intention. I mean, for the years that I've been referring Coldcard and coinkite, the only thing that I've ever received from coinkite is more cold cards. So it definitely will. And I know that there's other, Bitcoiners out there who are sponsored by them or were sponsored by them. And it's an unfortunate situation. And, just like a lot of things in Bitcoin, I do think that we're going to come out on, the other side of this. I think there's lots to learn, lots that we can learn and take away from this. And, for the people online who are saying self-custody is dead and the ETFs are the solution now, they can go fuck themselves, because that's the furthest from the truth.
Yep.
I think that now more than ever, we need to kind of come together instead of throwing shade and throwing names at each other and pointing the blame. Definitely taking some responsibility for it. I should have verified instead of trusting CoinKite, the trust that I had in them. And that was probably naive of me, but what are your thoughts on it? I know you've been pretty deep into it the last couple of days.
Yeah. It's, I see Lee J in here. I had a late one last night. Yeah, I was gone. I was actually ironically in Canada this weekend for a family reunion for my wife's side. So we were just in Windsor across the border, but I was kind of unplugged for a day, kind of deep into it, Thursday, Friday, and then kind of got ripped away from it for a little bit, for like 36 hours. So it gave me time to think a little bit and just be in the average person world. And no one knows. I mean, like, I saw 100 family members and precisely 0 people are talking about the attack or Bitcoin for that matter. I talked to 1 or 2 family members about Bitcoin because, they're close family members, and, we were talking about just incentives of society. We, just talk about based things, and they know obviously how I think and what I'm about. So all that said, I think one of the things that stands out is, number one, we're all going to be way better for this. Handful of things. Number 2, at what point does society storm the gates, the Bastille, and say, no, I can defend myself with weapons. I can have open source AI models. Thank you. And you're going to protect our borders. There's a couple other things. I just tweeted out the other day. I was like, I see this getting to a fever pitch over the next few months, because straight up, this could have been, we could have found this, if we had these open source models, or if Anthropic or whoever is giving us access to these things, then the good guys could have found it first, or whatever. And that kind of stuff just is criminal in my and like you said, responsibility. We all need to take responsibility. Like, I came on my show on Friday and just did it about this. And I think I've mentioned Coldcard 3 times in my life. I never even had one, never even used one. I was always kind of like, I always felt bad that I never had one, but I still like, hey, sorry if I ever led anyone astray. I always said, like, hey, these are 3 I like, go research these. But like, I think it's important for everyone to take responsibility at whatever part of the spectrum they're on, because that's the only time you can have agency in your life, right? If you're just shirking that and saying, well, someone else did this, then you were just giving ownership of your life and your actions, your agency, to other people. And so, some of these things are not diametrically opposed to each other, but as we say, right, 2 things can be true, or 100 things can be true at the same time. We have to take ownership ourselves and responsibility. We can only know what we know. And I think one of the last things, Jor, and you and I talk about this all the time, and it has to be said again, there's trust involved in human life. Bitcoin is not a substitute for just not having to trust everything in the world. Like, oh, rules, not rulers. Again, these memes cut both ways. And we have said this many times. The American founding was built on a moral, just, religious people. Full stop. Like, period. Like, it doesn't work. You can't just, but Bitcoin doesn't substitute good humans. It doesn't substitute good actors. It doesn't, you can't just like, hey, I'm gonna have Mad Max, hell on earth, and then all these things are just gonna be okay. It's just unfortunately not how, and I think it's a huge wake up call for a lot of Bitcoiners who thought they could just go into the corn stalks, disappear, and not have to tend their garden. That's just simply not the case. And what better way to kind of see this? And then the last thing I'll say, so we hit on all these things, but unification. In tragedy, then there's unity, and you see that, and you see a lot. I mean, I know there's some sniping that has crept back in. I've seen stuff like that, and people coming at each other. But unity, and what happens when there's bigger things at play, and then interesting timing. The Clarity Act, the soft fork stuff, all these things, bottom of a bear market, and all of a sudden this attack seemingly has been in the works for a while. Some people think it's a really like young kid or like someone that's very inexperienced. And then at the same time, you have you can make an argument that it's a nation state. It's really developed a high level actor, and who knows? So there's so many interesting things with all of this that I don't know. I mean, interesting is the only word I can think of, to be totally honest. And you feel for everyone, because we all are against a spectrum of people being affected, right? But every single person that owns Bitcoin or that has talked about Bitcoin, you are affected in some way going forward. And it puts us all on the same side of the boat, which goes back to the unity thing at the end of the day of, hey, you have to join together. You've got to figure out in a way in this decentralized network to join together somehow and push this forward, because all of us out here jumping at our own times across the world, that's great. But if this is going to become what we think it is, you're going to have unity and trust theoretically in each other in some way. Like, again, where is it getting shipped from? These things are happening in my life. Like, we couldn't audit all the code. Like, no one found it for 5 years. We didn't have because again, government was hamstringing us. It's like, how could we find all these things? You have to trust some of these people to do what they're supposed to do, because that's how human life works. I trust that gravity is going to work today, and all these different things. I trust that someone's not going to cross the median and hit me head on in a 2-lane road. There's an element of trust in society everywhere, and that you have to go down that road and understand that, but also be verifying things and doing your damnedest to try to take out these things. Just like preparedness. Our power was out last night. I'm doing on a hotspot, at 2 a.m. with Nathan, trying to just help people. I'm just doing back end stuff for him so he can answer questions, right? And people were asking about you in the chat yesterday. Is Jor okay? I was like, yeah, Jor's good. I just talked to him earlier. We're gonna go live tomorrow. So people are thinking of Jor. And I had to get my generator going. Like, I have a generator. I've got other things in backup as insurance policy to say, hey, if the power goes out or things happen, come home from Canada late at night and then the power's out. And so I had to do that for an hour and get that, so I don't know. There's so many thoughts, and this is not going to stop, really, unfortunately. But also, fortunately, we will be much better for it.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing that's been on my mind in the last 48 hours or however long it's been here. It just seems like a blur. Man, I don't think I've ever felt like that before. I was obviously away from my house for 3 days and 3 nights, and so I had no idea. I knew that it was still in there. I had somebody here check the balances, but still, it was a very uneasy feeling, because you just kind of felt like it could be gone any second. You know what I mean? It was moving that quickly. There was so much information. I think that the worst thing that you can do, and this is one of the takeaways that I had, there was many different takeaways, and I hope we get to touch on a few of them today. But just the importance of having people that you trust in Bitcoin, having a community of people. Because every time I opened up Twitter, there was 4 or 5 different versions of what was actually happening, and you don't know, what the intentions were, what how accurate the information is. And it just seemed like the more I looked at it, the worse I felt. And I was like, oh my God. But then I look at our, we have a Signal chat for a bunch of Bitcoiners who are in the Visionaries community. And there was probably 600 to 700 messages through the weekend of just people helping each other out. And I've always said Bitcoin is such a lonely place, and you don't really understand the importance of that statement when nothing's wrong. But when there is a crisis, when there is an emergency, man, you see the power of having a community like that. So I did want to say a big thank you and a huge appreciation to the people who are in the community, in the Signal chat, who are willing to take some of their time from the long weekend and just not only help people, but just, talk people down a little bit, because it just seemed like the more you looked into things, the worse you felt. And so, the other part of that too is that nobody I've talked to within the community has lost anything yet, but I don't think it's over, man. And this has kind of always been my thesis with Bitcoin, is that I figured AI or some sort of technology. I didn't think it would be quantum, but I just knew that AI would get to a point, because what does AI do? It just goes through large chunks of data.
Right.
That's what it is, at a very fast pace. And so I figured at one point in the future, it would be able to hack not Bitcoin, but wallets. And I did not think it would be coinkite or how it played out or whatever, but you had to see this coming. And so that's one of the things I've said numerous times in the last couple of months, especially, is like, just because you bought a Coldcard and you watched a tutorial, that does not mean your Bitcoin's safe. That's only about 1/1000th of what you need to do to take proper precaution. So whether that's a solid passphrase or whether that's a multisig, I think that's pretty much the new floor for people now. And you shouldn't be rushing into this. If you kind of have moved your coins or migrated away from Coldcard, you got a little bit of time to plan here. But I do think that like a multi-sig is the floor now. It's no longer a single sig in your drawer that you don't think about for 4 years. It's multi-sig. This is your responsibility, like you're talking about there. It is, because I know that we're kind of a different breed of humans willing to take on this responsibility with Bitcoin. But it's something that you have to take seriously. And I've been doing my best to yell
Yeah.
that from the mountaintop. And, you know, some people listen, some people haven't. But I think that the best way that you can learn is by something like this happening and you not actually being impacted by it, because you get to you got to feel it, you got
Yeah.
to see it, but your Bitcoin's still safe. So I think that that's what everybody should be doing going forward is think about a multisig. That's the only thing that I would trust right now. And CoinKite was the first this will happen to. It won't be the last. I think that there's going to be more and more of this in the next couple months. So just because you don't have a Coldcard, I don't think that your Bitcoin's safe. I think that this is only just the beginning of what comes next.
Yeah, and I know obviously Foundation and Blockstream, there's a bunch that have come out and said, hey, we looked through our stuff, BitKey, and they again have some of them, the wallets, and then there's seed sign. There's different ways to that they make hardware wallets, obviously, and then there's the different open source ones. Some are somewhat open source, you know, like there's a whole different range, a whole different spectrum, right, of these hardware wallets. And a bunch of them have come out and said, hey, we're fine, we've been scouring our code and stuff like that. And to your point, AI to me, like again 6 months ago, I know we were doing one of the shows one of the days, and I think it was the Straits of Hormuz. It was around one of those days where I was, you know, Claude, like some stuff had just shipped with Claude, and I was like, this is a game changer. I mean, all this stuff, and it should become very obvious to the average person that the only way you're going to be safe, your money, your system will be safe, will be in Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And because the Straits of Hormuz stuff was happening, Claude AI, because this is exactly what I foresaw, and I think a lot of us kind of foresaw this, but like it wasn't like you said, quantum's more of like, hey, people think of it like quantum, it's going to do, and it's going to break encryption. And that's a whole different spectrum, right? The AI part for me was this. It was exactly this. It was finding bugs in code, you know, stuff like that we didn't have access to. And that's why, again, I think it's interesting that apparently this was going on for a little while. Maybe even happened a few years ago.
I heard
so that's
5
where,
years.
yeah, I mean, that's what's really interesting. So I don't know. I mean, I didn't have access to my knowledge. I don't know if any of us had full access to the code base. So who had access to the code base? And on top of that, who had a code model capable enough to be going through the code and doing that type of thing, right? So those are some interesting questions that have to be answered. But again, that goes back to the very first thing I said, which is this fever pitch of people, the plebs, the community, which people have mentioned in here a bunch, which again, we have said a million times, community is the number one thing in a survival situation. When shit happens, tragedies, storms, events, it's community, because you don't know what it's going to be. We never know the black swan. We didn't know. Who would have thought it's Coldcard? You know, who would have thought there tornadoes coming from that direction, and this thing's happening here, and then the hurricane is about to hit shore, then it takes a right turn and then just hits over. Like, we just don't know what it's going to be. And that's why community is so important. There's a lot of Bitcoiners that have shit on this community aspect for a while now of like, it's completely BS. Bitcoin's a human system, and it always will be. And community is the only thing. I mean, it's one of the big drivers of me getting into Bitcoin nearly 10 years ago was, hey, there's this rabid psychopath community that's not going to say no. They're not going to sit down. That was a huge, for me as an investor, looking like, well, I want to join with those guys. Like, they're going to storm the Bastille. They're going to do it come hell or high water. And we can't lose that. But you have to stick together, because again, that community is what, you know, gets on. People get in the chat, and we all get together and we help each other. You know, these things are, because bad shit's going to happen in life. It happens to all of us, just in different ways. And so it's remembering that and not going into the corn stalks and just disappearing and thinking it's a field of dreams. And so this is, again, another stark reminder of that for me.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, like I said, it sucks. It's horrible. It's absolute devastation, man. I wasn't just feeling for myself. I actually was, you know, because I'm a part of a couple different things with my family, with another group that I have, and this is just, all I could think about was, man, I hope everybody that I know is safe. And kind of my Bitcoin was important, but I also had this weird feeling, and I don't know what it was, but I just knew that even if something happened to my Bitcoin, and you know, it was out of my control, I did the best that I could to protect it. And you know, whether it's the God's plan or whatever that is, I just trusted it would be okay. And even if I lost it, I knew that I could make it back somehow, some way in life. And so it was just like, I just felt for people out there, and I felt helpless myself. And, you know, it's scary, but at the same time, like you said, what we're talking about here today is that this stuff is going to happen. This was always going to happen. It was always going to happen. And it just happened right now. And that's why everybody's so, you know, where we are right now. That's the feeling that we have. It's almost like I can feel my hands almost shaky right now just thinking about it. But at the same time, it's a great learning experience because it wasn't meant to be this way where you just buy something, you lock it away in a safe, you never think about it again. That's never how it was supposed to be. It was, you need to cover your ass and you have to have things in place. You have to learn what you're doing. You have to know what a key is, where to keep it, how many keys should you have, where should they be? This is all stuff that you need to know. And people are just like, it's one of those things. It's like, can't happen to me until it does, until it happens to you or it happens to somebody else that you know. And then it's like, okay, now, well, I better take some action. So I think the most productive thing that we can do probably is just kind of, I've been paying attention to Twitter. I've been paying attention to YouTube. It seems like a lot of things have already been said. I don't know what Brandon and I can really bring in terms of like a fresh perspective or if it's necessary. But what's the next play for people here once they get their Bitcoin off of their Coldcard? Obviously, we talked about Seed Signer. That's a great option. But I still feel like, man, even with a random number generator that didn't have a bug in it, I still feel like there's more layers that you can stack on top of this. Because again, that I didn't know that it would be this way, but I figured that AI would get good enough where it could just shoot through this stuff at 1 billion trillion times per second and just start picking off wallets. But it's the entropy on top of that, whether that's a passphrase or a multisig. You have to stack layers on top of that. It was okay for what we had, but there's been better options available. And I think that this should be people's wake-up call to invest in it, invest your time, invest your money, whatever you need to do to stack layers of security on top of your private keys to make sure that this shit doesn't happen to you, because there's going to be more. And what's going to keep happening is that they're just going to keep picking off the lowest hanging fruit. And so you don't want to be the lowest hanging fruit. You want to be at the top of the tree. The tree something still might happen in the tree, but you want to make sure that there's layers on top of, before somebody gets to that or an AI model gets to that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. Again, I think of like the nuclear briefcase, right? The football, the nuclear codes. I mean, that's what Bitcoin is, right? I mean, it's cryptography. When you go turn on YouTube and go watch a nuclear sub or something like that, how they operate, and there's all the codes and this, and the handshakes and the signals and the key, and they got to look at each other 3 ways and blink twice, and like you got to do all this stuff. I mean, that's the level that you're dealing with, a new system of society. That's what Bitcoin is. And, inherently, I think we all know that. That's why we're in Bitcoin. Everyone in the chat, everyone I've seen this weekend, we all know that. And it's tough because you're not on a nuclear sub. So sometimes we do get lax on our security or whatever it is. We think, good is good enough. And it's easier to take it seriously when you're on a boomer, or you got 130 people around you, or you're in the middle, bottom of the ocean, and it's kind of like, okay, we got to be serious here. There's lives at risk. Obviously, there's this is a very serious thing, but this is a new system, and not to totally equate the two, because this is one I think Bitcoin can help us preserve life, where nuclear war is generally taking away life. Even though I know some will argue that it will save more life by doing this. Again, we'll spare these arguments for today. But my point is, again, the cryptography, right? The keys, having your wealth, the property, and the importance of that. And multisig was, like you just mentioned, for years, this was mentioned as the gold standard as well. Obviously, Coldcard, a lot of Bitcoiners, like I said, I felt bad forever because I never had one. Like you kind of felt guilty as a Bitcoiner who the people that didn't have Coldcards, you kind of always had like a little thing in the back of your head. And I've seen a few people say this over the weekend, and I felt the same way. I know just in the back of my head somewhere, I was like, I got to get a Coldcard. Like, I just, real Bitcoiners have a Coldcard, and that's how, deep it runs. And so that's why it hurts the most. But again, is that not apropos for Bitcoin itself of, stay humble, stack sats. We have to continually humble ourselves. And it's the only way, going back to taking responsibility for things, and not getting caught up in the whatever it is, especially the last couple of years, the ETFs and this and wrappers and that, and that's great. Like the Trojan horses are great. We need those things. I made this example or the analogy the other day of, and you just said, self-custody is always the way. It's always going to be the way. It's always going to be around. We're always going to have, like you said, George, we're always going to have different rungs in the ladder here, where the lowest hanging fruit, could be susceptible to things, but just staying ahead of the curve and just staying up to date on things, treating them like they are the nuclear code. That's kind of why I was bringing that up a minute ago, but staying ahead of this, because it's always going to be there. But that Trojan horse with the wrapper and everyone saying, oh, we need this, we need nation states in this, we need the ETFs, we need all these things. Okay, well, it's great, but we need the self-custody folks in the Trojan horse. Those are the people running the nodes, having the self-custody. Those are the people in the horse. And if the Trojan horse goes in the walls empty, then it was moot. There's no point. And so that is always going to be the case of holding your property rights, having really 8 billion people for the first time in human history be able to own their own property and actually take care of that. So that, and again, that, like I said earlier, one of the reasons was actually the community that I got, maybe the 5 or 10 really big reasons that I kind of looked at as to getting into Bitcoin and investing in Bitcoin as an investor first. Kind of the Stanley Druckenmiller, you think of like 10 years or 8 years ago, and the guys were looking at each other, him and Paul Tudor Jones, right in there. Well, hey guys, like, did you realize that none of these people have sold in the last downturn, right? You kind of have some of those realizations. And one of those for me, again, was seeing the community for the first time and being like, oh my gosh, like, yes, like these people are just like me. I didn't know these people existed. Like, these people are going to win for sure. Like they will die on the hill more than anyone I've ever found. And so that aspect of it can't go away. It has to be the people in the Trojan horse. And is most of the world ever going to custody their own stuff? No, probably not. Do we hope that's the case? Yes, but it's just, that's not reality. And that's okay. But we always have to have that, because to me, the value of the network, a lot of it resides in the fact that humans can control their keys, can control their property, and it's not centralized in the state. Because as we know, that is the end game of gold and silver. It's why fiat even exists. It's because you cannot custody at scale gold and silver, and you cannot have instant settlement, final settlement around the world. That is the sole reason that Bitcoin is so much better than gold and silver as money, and really, in my eyes, the only true money we've ever discovered as human beings. So that is the selling point for really humanity going to a Bitcoin standard. So having custody, the plebs, the people being able to run the code, to actually audit things, see what's going on, and make sure the settlement is the settlement, the trade is the settlement. That's what gives the value to the Bitcoin network, to say, this is actually a protocol outside of the system. This is not something the government can control. This is not someone, some centralized Fort Knox can control, or some centralized entity. And so we have to just continually remember that, even in emotional times, stay level-headed, and no matter how much we're hurting, because we're all hurting to some degree, obviously, some more than others, some less, we're all affected, and just continually remember these different characteristics of why we're here in the first place.
Yeah, I was thinking about that this morning. I've been seeing people like British Hodl and these other dipshits on X saying, no, it is though. Like, it's stupid. They're using this as an excuse to build up Wall Street, and it's like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it defeats the whole purpose. Yeah. If I ever get to a point where I don't feel comfortable with my own self-custody and I think that I'm unsafe, I'm just going to sell my Bitcoin.
What's the point? Might as well be back on the Titanic. Yeah, but go, like, you might as well just buy NVIDIA. Okay, yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm seeing there's a lot of good comments in here. I just want to say shout out to everybody in the chat today. I see some familiar faces, some new faces. Like Brandon mentioned there is a lot of emotions right now. Understand, feel you. I felt every kind of emotion there was to feel this weekend and when I got home yesterday, and even right now. And it's, it's probably not something that's going to go away, but I think that, when your back's up against a wall like that, you're forced to act. And I think that when people are acting, and I think that this is important too, because this is something else I've been saying through the last year or so, is like the whole phrase of not your keys, not your coins. I felt it was pretty dangerous, honestly, especially when people get into Bitcoin and that's the first thing they hear, and then they try to move too quickly. And that's the whole thing is that, yes, you should always have the goal of getting your Bitcoin off the exchanges. That should be your end goal, kind of at the end of the road. You want to have a multi-sig, your own keys. You want to have everything set up and geographically dispersed and all this stuff. And even the keys you should have encrypted. But there's ways to do this. It just doesn't happen overnight or in a week or in a month. So you should, like, leaving your Bitcoin on the exchanges is fine as long as it's not your long-term solution. Until you can get your house built, your foundation built, it should be on the exchanges. And so people get into this space and they're like, well, I'm an idiot because I don't hold my own keys. So I'm going to go buy $1,000 worth of hardware wallets and I'm just going to watch a YouTube video and then I'm going to be good because I have my keys now. But there's so much more to it than that. There's so much more to it than that. And so, like I said, it's a good lesson. I think for anybody out there who's kind of in a state of panic right now, just don't move too quickly. I know that the clock's ticking right now in terms of we don't know what's coming next or who's going to be impacted next. And, it's a scary situation. But at the same time, you can really mess up if you're not doing things carefully with a level head. Because, if you go through the process and you don't really know what you're doing and you create a multisig or you add a passphrase or something that you're not really familiar with yet. And yeah, you can move it away from your Coldcard and it's going to be in this new wallet. But that doesn't mean anything. It's very easy to send Bitcoin to an address. The difficult thing is what happens if your laptop stops working tomorrow? What happens if the passphrase, you lose the piece of paper that you wrote down the passphrase on? All of your Bitcoin's gone just like that. Nobody hacked it. You just moved too quickly. So I think that people should just take a second. And even if you do have to move it back to the exchanges for a week or two or a month or two, make sure you know what you're doing before you move any substantial amount into a new wallet. That'd be my best advice for people at this exact moment. Don't move too quickly. Obviously, take action in terms of moving it if you think your Coldcard was at risk, if you didn't have a passphrase. But don't do anything crazy until you have the knowledge, the experience, or you have somebody there walking you through it. And even at that point, it's like, yeah, I could spend 2 days with somebody showing them how to set up a multisig and how to back it up and all this stuff. But then you don't think about it for 3 months. And then you come back there and you're like, what the hell did I do? And then in times like this, you don't know what you're doing because you never actually took the time to learn what you were doing. So the whole idea of the course that I've been doing all of 2026 is like multisig was the goal. I knew that people needed to build themselves up to it. It's not something that you can just do in a weekend and just be all your bases covered. You have to know the inner workings of it and what you're doing and how to back it up and what happens if this happens. So it's that'd be my best advice for people right now, is just to obviously migrate it, but don't move too quickly into something if you don't feel like you know what you're doing with it, because that's death, man.
Yeah, and it's to your point, Joe. I mean, it's short term. Like we're doing triage right now, and we're trying to make sure people's Bitcoin is safe, especially obviously from the Coldcard angle. I know there's people from all over with different wallet setups, different. Everyone's kind of verifying their stuff. Everyone's kind of going through their stuff, which is great, and that's what should happen. That's again why I was mentioning the nuclear codes and the submarines and like what happens, because Wall Street does want that. I think the kid said that, Wall Street wants everyone's coin back in exchanges. Of course, that's, us Bitcoiners, we love a good conspiracy. I mean, that's why I mentioned that earlier. Like, it's kind of interesting timing. It's pretty interesting timing that this was sat on for years. And now it's, hey, how do we shake the Bitcoin community the hardest, at the heart of it? And, this is never going to be easy. And again, this is something we've talked about a lot, taking money and separating it from state and having an open source money in the world and having people adopt that over time was always going to be an incredibly difficult task. And it's going to take time and patience and diligence. And so here we are. And does it change you? Does it, one of the tropes in Bitcoin and the memes, the dogma, if you will, is, well, you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you. Does it? Are we that different? Have we learned before? Have we, I thought I was supposed to incentivize people to act differently and be different. Does it? Maybe it doesn't. I know it has for me. It's changed a lot in my life. I've seen a change a lot of people's lives personally, but maybe not everybody. I don't know. Maybe is that a false meme? Bitcoin does its thing. When you got to route around it, you have to change to it. So I believe that's true. And again, that's where I know it's tough because, multisig for years, again, these things were talked about. I know for a long time that it's funny, George, because there's times when I was not happy with my setup. And like you just kind of mentioned, I knew my setup wasn't what I wanted it to be. And I knew that inherently, and I knew it was kind of at risk, and so everyone's different. However, when you're handling nuclear codes, you have to go down the rabbit hole. And I mean, go down the rabbit hole. You have to be checking behind every box and every corner and every nook and every crevice. That's how this works. And so we have to be very careful with, we're on this riding line of taking responsibility for stuff and also not pointing fingers at the same time. Was MDK, were they doing their shenanigans going on? Of course. Like, yeah, we don't even know what was going on yet. We don't even know the full scope of what was happening. At the same time, this is why we were talking about agency and not giving up your own agency. And people saying, well, everyone did, these people did everything right. That's all relative. I mean, that's relatively speaking, someone did everything right. Again, right when you get into Bitcoin 10 years ago, it was like multisig, and that still is talked about today. And so a single sig without like you said, it's lowest hanging fruit in the tree. And so, everyone's comfortable with different setups. But for me, it was like, I want to know the spectrum of solutions. You go down these rabbit holes, you figure everything out. And maybe I don't do it yet. Coming back to what Joe was just saying with maybe I'm not comfortable yet because I haven't learned how to do all this stuff yet. Maybe properly do these things. Maybe I'm not the person I need to be in order to do it yet. I don't know what that is. I don't know. It's a different answer for everybody. But then to have, I said this, I think yesterday too, like just being very careful with just throwing agency over to other people and letting your agency go to someone else. Because at the end of the day, you can make it as complicated as you want, but there is a riding line between being the most vulnerable and also the most complicated. There's a middle ground in there, and knowing that. And like I said, I was uneasy for a number of years. I didn't even get into Bitcoin, George, like in 2016 or 17, because I was scared of wallets. I was scared of self-custody. Just like in the back of my mind, like I heard about these wallet things. I was like, what the hell is a wallet? Like I need a flash drive. Like what the hell is going on? Like, and I just kind of dragged my feet for a year or two. I missed the whole 2017 bull run and didn't start buying until 2018 and watched a bull run. I'm like, oh, that sucks. And then was like, okay, well, I'm going to wait till it comes back down, which, as an investor, you kind of look at the buy low, sell high type of thing. Naively, you kind of realize in hindsight, like, well, shoot, that could have gone up forever. It didn't have to come back down. It did. And that's when I started buying when it hit the, bottoms in 2018. And that's when I started, physically getting in. And the self-custody aspect is what kept me at bay. And still for another year or two, I was still trying to learn the custody aspect and really diving into, Ben's videos and all kinds of different videos and reading what I could about self-custody and really getting through. Because you had this overwhelming sense of, well, if I'm going to manage these funds, this energy, my time and energy, then I better know what the hell I'm doing. And so there's still things even now that I look at, I'm like, that could be better. That could be better. And to your point, it's being at peace with what it is, I guess, at the end of the day, right? Like, I know I'm getting rugged in this system for sure. I'm on the Titanic. I know I'm going 12,000 feet under. I'm getting in the life raft. But that doesn't mean I'm going to make it to New York City still. It doesn't mean the Carpathia is going to pick me up. I might freeze my ass off out in the ocean here. And we talk about that with the war. And I've said numerous times, like, hey, this is what they're saying they're going to do with the war. I'm just telling you what they're saying. It's this new American system. They've done a lot of stuff here, but they got to land the carrier. I landed the carrier here at night still, and it's raining. You got to use instruments to land on the carrier. Now you still got to complete the mission somehow. And that's still a very, not a small chance, but it's still a lot that has to go right in order for you to complete the mission. And so I think that's, I think hopefully you understand what I'm saying, Jor. It seems like you do, because I'm trying to ride the line between just, throwing agency on everyone else and just my own experience of what I thought about self-custody 10 years ago. And then the level of seriousness that I wanted to take with it and just say, okay, this if I'm doing this, I'm going all in. Or I might as well just go back to the 401k or the RSP or this, whatever it is. I might as well, which is, hey, if it's not everyone's built to do that. So anyway, it's just, again, a balanced, nuanced approach here.
Yeah, I think that's the whole thing, Brown. I think that's the best way to put it, is a nuanced, balanced approach. And you got to figure out what that is. You know what I mean? Like it's everybody's in a different situation. Everybody has been in Bitcoin for a different amount of time. Everybody has a different stack of Bitcoin. Everybody has a different percentage of their total wealth in Bitcoin. And it's like, it's hard to sit up here and say that this answer is the best for everybody when it's just not. It's just not. And then you have all these narratives of not your keys, not your coins. And it's like, well, yeah, for some people, but like the majority of people, the majority of Bitcoin that I've seen lost through the years has been people messing up on their own, people losing their passphrase, people losing their 12 words and locking out their cold card to their
4 million
hardware
coins,
device at
right?
the same time.
Yeah.
And so it is a balance. And I think that that's one thing that I've been pretty consistent with the messaging is that you shouldn't do it until you're ready. But when you're ready, you have, like Brandon said, you got to go all in, man. This isn't like, you can't half-ass it. You can't set it up and not think about it for the next 5 years, right? Like that's what Bitcoin is. It's all
I check
about
every week. I don't know about you, George. Like I go through my setup each week. Like I go check stuff, make sure like it's working. I know what's going on. I remember it. Yeah, because there's times where like I didn't do it for a month or a couple of weeks or something like that. Went on vacation or something, and it come back and like you feel kind of rusty. You're like, oh, like, oh, I don't know how to work the nuclear codes. Like it's that level. You're like, oh shit. Like you kind of get scared almost, or like something like it's like can't do it.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where it's a full-time job. It's a full-time job. That's what it is. And I talked about this last week too, even. I said, if you're the Bitcoiner in your family, you are the family wealth manager. And even though you're not getting paid a salary to be the wealth manager of your family, your salary is going to be how much Bitcoin outperforms everything else that you could have had your capital in for the next decade. That's your salary. And so it's not something that you do part-time. This is something that you need to do over and over and over again. And, I think people will see that now. It's easy for me to sit here and say that that's the case, but until something like that, like people, you're too much. You're trying to sell me a course, or you're trying to sell me on your community. It's like, no, this is legitimately how I feel. This is how I've done it since I got into Bitcoin. And I know for a fact that when I got home yesterday with a bit of a hangover at 5 p.m, and I was able to move a bunch of my Bitcoin around, if I didn't constantly practice through the last 3 years, I would have been fucked.
Mm-hmm.
I would have had no idea what I was doing. And I would have been in a state of panic. I probably would have made a mistake, but it's because I've constantly rehearsed this stuff over and over and over and over again that it was just like, didn't have to think about it. I knew where things were. I knew how to do it. And it was easy for me. But it's not because I'm smarter than anybody else. It's just because I've done so much of it through the last 4 years that it's just like, that's the only way you build that muscle is through constant repetition of it.
Yeah, and you get to fight the urge too of just like the normie world, and because we all have it, we all live in this fiat world still. We see it every day. You have to drive around and do this stuff, and so you have this urge to be there, whether you know it or not, and that's where the whole you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you ethos comes in of heavy is the head that wears the crown. Like if you're taking on the responsibility of, hey, I'm doing this, and again, this is why the average person doesn't, quite honestly. So we talk about self-custody for 8 billion people, all this stuff, but the average person doesn't feel comfortable. They don't trust themselves. Now we can get into a million reasons as to why that's the case. And many people know, I think it's government run schooling, like it's 100 years of conform, comply, obey, conform, comply, obey, conform, comply, obey. Well, that's why we're here. And I had that in me too, a little bit. I'm a product of United States government run schooling for 12 to 16 years. And fortunately, I checked out of a lot of it toward the last half of my school career, and I'd fight with teachers and professors and argue with them, and because it just made zero sense. But I had my upbringing of my father just kind of giving that base of just like questioning everything, and give me your history book when I get home the first day of school, like all this stuff, and he'd go through it and he'd be like, this is dumb, like that's wrong, and so I had this already, this that background, that foundation, and we have to fight that urge because we're so used to everyone around us just like seemingly, oh, like I'm going to work and then I throw it into NVIDIA and it just seems to go up. Like these things just like, oh, I'm in my 401k, and everyone just seems like it's going up, and it's just like, they're really losing. Their house is only going up 3 to 5%, inflation's at 10%. Like they think they're winning. So everyone kind of around you seems like they're kind of winning a little bit ish. The United States is kind of winning ish. People in Canada are kind of winning ish. But they're not, they're getting crushed long term, right? They're on the Titanic. And it's when you're in the Wild West, which is Bitcoin, that's the terms and service agreement that you accept of stepping into this world of true total responsibility. And that's very tough when no one around you is doing it. And that's why doing stuff like this is so important. Hopping into the chat and all of us getting together, going back to this community thing where, the peer-to-peer meetups, Lake Satoshi just happened this weekend here an hour down the road from me, which still is the third or fourth time they've done it. And I still have never got to go because I always have a freaking family. Yeah, I always have seriously. I always have a family reunion or something going on during this weekend. So I will get there someday. But yeah, these peer-to-peer meetups, so important. Community, so important. These chats, so important. All the shows, all the Bitcoin content and education is so incredibly important. And like you just said, it's hard because talking about these things is not super sexy. That's not what people want to talk about. People want to talk about NGU. They want to talk about all these things. And so if we put out content like this, which many of us have over time, it doesn't get clicks. Like it doesn't happen. But that's the audience, the algorithm telling us they don't want us to do it. And so people think it's the content creators that like, why don't you do more of that? Well, it's out there. We've done it, but no one watches it. You just haven't seen it because you didn't want to. You didn't want to watch it. Well, it's not. It doesn't work that way.
Until Coldcard gets hacked, and then you have 1,000 messages on all your old Coldcard videos. Then people watch it after.
There you go. And so that was exactly my point. That there's content out there. There's tons of content out there about it. It just doesn't get fed to people because they don't want that. Generally, most people don't want that. So to your point, Joe, it's sad.
They want to look at charts and what's the US dollar value going to be in 6 months from now.
Yep. And that's the great adoption is an NGU. So we're not saying that. Like it is, of course, the great adoption curve or what brings people into Bitcoin. But that's the sad part is the sad reality is that generally people aren't going to the education really until there's pain. And we've talked about this obviously many times of it's going to be more painful going forward. It's going to get worse before it gets better. Generally, I was speaking societally. Again, no one saw this being one of the things on the bingo card, but generally it was more of like the Marty McFly, Biff Tannen and Pleasure Paradise, Back to the Future 2, where things are burning on the streets and you have the shotgun in the car with you just to go get gas. That's generally how I thought about it a little bit more for the last 20 years of, this is going to keep getting worse and worse because we just keep doing dumb things and shooting ourselves in the foot politically over and over again. But that's going to come too in a way. So that's why getting prepared now is so important. Building community and making sure the nuclear codes are safe. Your prep, your self-defense, your generator, having some water, some food storage, all these things to be prepared for the black swans, the things we don't know about, the unknown unknowns. So.
I mean, it's just the whole thing is just very consistent with Bitcoin itself in the sense of like proof of work. What does proof of work mean? It means it's things that you can't fake. It's things that you can't shortcut. All these things. Mm-hmm. It's like I always said the best time to join this community was yesterday. Second is today. But like, just imagine if you're by yourself in Bitcoin, you got nobody to talk to. You're going to be paying somebody $300, $400, $500 in their very short amount of time that they have helping other people. Or you can just start building trust, building relationships, start making these connections before this stuff happens. It's reputation, trust, time. These are things that cannot be faked or cannot be bought. It's something that have to be earned, just like proof of work is. It requires real time, real energy, real attention to it. And it goes through time. You can't just snap your fingers and, get your Bitcoin back. You can't just snap your fingers and be in a group chat with 100 other Bitcoiners who are all talking about this stuff. You have to be prepared for before this stuff happens. And it's going to happen again and again and again, forever. As long as we're alive, there's going to be constant attacks of Bitcoin. And so you just have to be ready for it here. So Brandon, a couple things here. Number one, I'm going to go through a couple of these comments that I've been starring. There's actually a lot in there. I'm having a hard time keeping up with it. Yeah. I'm also going to have my buddy Daniel hop on here right away. He's going to tell us about a new alternative to rolling the dice 100 times. And it kind of ties into this, which is right here from LaughPad. He said, I'm still using Coldcard, but will never use any self-generated entropy for any wallet moving forward, regardless of manufacturer. Always use 100+ dice rolls. Always verify the device's dice roll math. So I think that's a great point. Obviously I'm not going to advise people to buy Coldcards ever again until probably ever again. Like, just to be completely honest with you, I don't care what they do in the future to mitigate this or whatever. Once the trust is broken, it's gone forever, I think. But that doesn't mean that your device is a problem. It's just the seed phrase that was generated by the device. That's the problem. So for me, myself, I'm probably not going to go out and spend $1,000 or $2,000 to get new devices. I have devices here. The devices aren't the problem. The problem are the seed phrases that were being generated by the devices. So if you can figure out how to do it, whether it's through dice rolls or what Daniel's going to talk about, that's a pretty good alternative, I would say. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, from everything, my fairly limited technical prowess, I guess. I mean, from everything I see, I would agree with that. You know, what Ben and Nathan have been saying, many people in the chats and many of the videos that I've been on or joined in on, whatever, whether it's the spaces, even stuff like that. I think Wicked, you know, stuff like that. I think generally speaking, yeah, you're right. Like if you have the the new firmware or whatever, that's more of the random number generator part, to my knowledge. But to your point, if you wipe it and you're using it as, because everyone, I know people love the Coldcard, right? Because it's like the old BlackBerry. I love my old BlackBerry.
It's a great
old BlackBerry
device.
Curve.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean you have the whole pad. I mean it's beautiful, right? It's so amazing for that. And so, like you said, if you can introduce entropy and have these couple different levels of the whatever the passphrase and dice rolls and all these different things. Yeah, it's beautiful of that as a signer. I've seen a lot of people. I mean, to be totally honest, in a handful of streams I've been a part of over the last few days, I've seen a lot of people saying like, I'm not moving away from it. I'll just generate a new seed, dice rolls, pass road, all that stuff. And like, I love my queue, I love whatever. So, I think at some point, once again, I'm not necessarily the first person to do stuff like that. So like, I might wait a little while and then see how people are doing, that type of thing. But I would love to. I always, like I said, I always wanted the Coldcard because of that, in that sense, the BlackBerry Curve. I loved my BlackBerry Curve and I was like, oh man, like I want that. But yeah, I don't think I'll ever recommend doing it. So again, it's your own thing. Verify what you're doing. If that's what you're comfortable with, then hey, go do it. But yeah, as long as you're, hitting your different levels of security checkpoints, verify all that. But I could see a lot of people doing that for sure. And it sounds like people are.
Yeah. Buck 52 says, is it true that if you never broadcasted a transaction from the wallet, it was not targeted? Yeah, I mean, there would be no other way to see it. And I think that's the case for both single sig wallets and in a multi-sig. The only way that somebody could figure out if your public key was part of a multi-sig would be as if you actually sent a transaction. But for me, every time I help somebody set up a hardware device or a multi-sig or whatever, the first thing that we do is we broadcast a transaction, which now, I've learned a lot throughout this whole experience myself. I don't think we'll be doing that anymore. I think that you can actually get to the point of making sure that your private key works without actually having to broadcast the transaction. So that's something that, I always thought that, like I said earlier in the show, I said, it's so easy to send Bitcoin to an address. Anybody can do that. The hard part is making sure that you can actually spend it from that address that it's associated with. And that's what you want to make sure that you have before you move all of your Bitcoin onto that. So that is the case for single sig, for multi-sig. If you did never send a transaction, you're probably fine. I don't know for sure though. So I don't really want to say 100%, but from my, just general knowledge here, I would say that is the case. If you've actually never broadcast, you've only received into your wallet associated with your private key, then I think that you'd be a much lower risk as opposed to somebody who had broadcast transactions before. Because I'm guessing that's what the software they would have been using. It would have been looking through previous transactions, the public key to that, trying to match a private key to it. It's not easy stuff. But I mean, again, we're talking about AIs here, and nobody knows how powerful these AIs are. I think that was kind of my main takeaway of this thing. Is I have no idea what these things are capable of. So again, just move yourself up either move it to an exchange and just kind of let the dust settle here and figure out your shit, or just keep moving up the stack in terms of the layers of security on top of yours so that you're not the lowest hanging fruit.
Look at Mythos and Fable. It was got sidelined 6 months ago as well, and they were deemed, to again. I think there was some crazy stuff happening there. I think that there, and again, only a couple, whatever companies were allowed to have it. And I think Ben said this first, and it was kind of like what I was thinking in my head, but I didn't know what I was thinking until he said it. And he was just like, dude, this is for sure. They were hacking shit in the back end of like the existing financial system or something like that, right? Where Mythos and Fable were doing stuff or finding vulnerabilities, right? And they're like, whoa. Average person cannot have this. And so again, And Philip just said this too. Risk management 101 is you can never eliminate risk. You can only mitigate it. And that's why he said, like,
Yeah.
I had to trust someone that they're not going to cross over the median and hit me head on. All I can do is maybe ride on the line a little bit, watch the guy going by me, and just, get over on the shoulder a little bit, right? All these little things I can do, trade-offs, probabilities, incentives. That's life. And that's why the Titanic example, I love the Titanic example because you use it in so many ways where I know in the existing system, I'm getting rug pulled for sure. I'm absolutely getting rug pulled. I know I'm losing long-term. I'm getting in this lifeboat and I'm taking that responsibility that I'm making this trade, that I'm in this little ass boat in the middle of the North Atlantic at night in April. That's a risk I'm willing to take. And I know I have a chance at life over here. I might not make it, but I know I have a chance at life though. And so I think, again, that's where we have to do all that we can in order to increase the probabilities of our existence later on. But I just thought that was a good comment, the risk management 101, because it's the trade-offs, probabilities. Thomas Sowell talks about this, all the time. Many of these economists over the years, whether it's Hayek or Friedman and stuff like that, but Thomas Sowell always talks about, life being trade-offs and probabilities. And so it's just, again, something to remember as we're going through our setups and thinking of things in our estate planning, future forward.
Well, that's the other part of this too. That's like, yeah, you can make your security setup as complex as you wanted to. You could set up a 50 multisig. Yeah. That's the beauty of Bitcoin. It's like it's so flexible. Yep. You can make this thing so secure if you wanted to, but then you also have to balance, like, how the hell is your family going to access it if you're gone?
Yep.
So you have to find the balance there. It's not an easy thing to do, which is why most people on this planet refuse to do it. Literally, right?
Yep.
Good comment here from Micah. She said, Craig walked me through how to check that I had control of my wallet on Coldcard without sending a transaction. Forget now, but we did do it. So basically, to do that, and what I'm going to be doing going forward too now, without having to actually broadcast a transaction, is you go through the exact same process you would to broadcast a transaction, except for one thing: you just don't broadcast a transaction. So if you're using like a hardware device that's air gapped, you do the whole, save the transaction, sign the transaction, load the transaction. And then as soon as you see that blue bar go across your Sparrow wallet, that means that your key worked. And you can stop there. You can delete it. That's never been broadcast to the network. It has no impact on anything. You just stop right there. You delete your PSB.
It's everything right before you hit broadcast, the final step.
Exactly.
Correct?
Yeah.
Sparrow's huge. I mean, people have to use Sparrow, and that I think we're going to see a huge increase in Sparrow usage. Huge.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those things where, like, open source, and that was the thing that people always said, like, coinkite's closed source or verifiable source code, I guess it was. So then then you say, okay, well, who had the ability to view the code? If it wasn't completely open source, who had the access to it, and how long did they have it? How long this has been in the works? And to me, I was thinking about that as you said that. Is this some nerd, or was this a nation state? I don't think it really matters, but honestly, I would prefer if it was a nation state, because if they had 5 years and all this technology and they got 1,000 Bitcoin out of it, a whole nation state or intelligence agency or whatever it is, that actually makes me much more bullish on Bitcoin overall, knowing that, yeah, it was horrible for all the people who were attacked in it. But at the same time, that's a pretty good indication of how strong this encryption is in Bitcoin. And again, you have to take on the responsibility yourself to say, hey, we got Bitcoin. This is the tool, but I want to make sure that this tool is as sharp as it can be. And I know what I'm doing too with it. So a couple more comments here. And then Daniel, I sent you a message on Signal. I don't know if you're still in the chat or not, but I messaged you on Signal. First of all, big shout out to Sats and Sunsets, gifted 10 memberships on the channel, and also 5 memberships over on Rumble. So Sats and Sunsets holding it down. Also a membership from our Jenny Legendary over on Rumble. So thank you for that to you guys and girls. Very much appreciated. This is a question here from Bitcoin Barber. He said, question, would you still have your Bitcoin if it was an exchange, or would you still have your Bitcoin if it was in a hackable coinkite wallet? Would you still have your Bitcoin if it was in an exchange? Well, yeah, assuming the exchange didn't get hacked. I don't see, I haven't heard of any exchanges getting hacked. Or would you still have your Bitcoin if it was in a hackable coinkite wallet? Is that like an actual question, or are you just like asking a hypothetical here? saying that it would have been
I think it's
safer on an
hypothetical,
exchange.
rhetorical. Yeah.
Philip said, but you're still going to run the risk of losing your Bitcoin on the exchange when they decide to close your account, freeze your account, or prevent you from selling it. 100%. Like, exchanges are not the solution here. The exchanges are a temporary position.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
A temporary measure.
Yep.
And, whether that's a week, a month, I wouldn't leave it in there much longer than that. Like, again, put whatever you got going on in your life right now. If you have the majority of your wealth in Bitcoin, you're going to have to make some sacrifices. Even though it is summer, it's August, it's the nicest month of the year. You have to get your foundation, you have to get your shit together here. And whatever that takes, whatever you have to do, whether you want to spend the time yourself or hire somebody to help you with it, this is important stuff. If Bitcoin is your family's wealth, you are the one in charge of this, not NVK or not anybody else. It's you. So you have to put in the work here to make sure that your Bitcoin is safe. And again, the exchanges right now probably are the safest place for it, short term. But take action, get your foundation built. Reach out. Obviously, this is I'm looking at my calendar for these next couple of days, pretty full, but there's a lot of great people out there who can help. If it's somebody in the community, if you're a part of that, Forrest has been helping a lot of people too. BTC sessions, there's people that can help and want to help.
Yeah, I know.
So just take some time now, commit some time to it. And again, this is serious stuff. And my threshold for Bitcoin security has always been 5%. Like, whatever your stack is worth, you should be investing at least 5% of your stack into making sure that that is safe. Like, think about a bank. Bitcoin, you need bank level security times 100 because the banks deal in fiat. Think about how much security goes into a bank, right? They got the cameras, they got the security,
and it's fake. Think about that. That's wild, right? How much security they have, and it's still fake, but they still secure it that
nothing.
Much.
Exactly, they're protecting nothing. So it's like you have to be that for your own family. Like, this is what it takes to be a Bitcoiner. And if you lose your money at the bank or they lose the money at the bank, they're going to get more money because it's nothing. It's just thin air. Bitcoin is different than that. So just think about how a bank would secure its holdings, its reserves, and apply that to your own life and look at all scenarios, all situations. It's going to take some money or some time or whatever it is, but you have to get up to speed with this if you are going to hold your wealth in self-custody. If you don't want that, then yeah, leave it on the exchange. Get the price exposure to it. Put it into IBIT, get the price exposure to it without any actual responsibility. But you're missing out the key component of Bitcoin here, which is the sovereignty. Number go up is great. Protecting your purchasing power is great. But the sovereignty is the real superpower of Bitcoin. And so it's up to you to sort that out for yourself and for your family.
Yeah. Yeah, and then again, this is the whole game theory, the Spider-Man meme of everyone looking at each other, and there's naturally going to be people with Bitcoin on exchanges and Bitcoin in IBIT or owning claims on that. And again, we talk about these saturation points, risk, probabilities, trade-offs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if there's a saturation point of people going the other direction and centralizing their coins, then you cease having a world, a protocol that exists that can actually change things. And so you're basically sacrificing the long term for the short term. And so again, everyone's got to weigh the world they wish to see in the future. Everyone has different answers, everyone has different incentives, different thoughts, and what they want to do with their life and see the world. And for me, I don't like evil, and I want to see the people that are running things, I want to see that system be rug pulled. And running on fake government currencies all over the world. Do I think they're still going to kind of exist going forward? Yeah, I mean, I think for a long time they're going to have governments, trying to spit out new fiat currencies, give you the new slogans, have the new Christine Lagardes come out and give you, we put some, stupid face on this new dollar, like look at it, or new euro, and you're going to have that. But it's really what system are we building? What am I here for long term? Doing the digging down deep of, am I going to sacrifice maybe a little bit in the short term for long-term gain for my children, for my children's children, for their children? And that's the answer that Unfortunately, I think there's I know many people in the world that just haven't thought that far. I think Bitcoiners have generally thought down those roads, which again is why we're here. And it's just a time to dig down again and think about those things. And which world do we want to see? Do I want these people to be able to print and steal my time and energy and everyone else's around me and create more disaster, create more homelessness, create more wars, create more on and on and on, more, wokeness, more bullshit everywhere? Or do I want to take that power back from these people and say, no, we are responsible for what's going on here. I am building a new world. Me and my boys and girls here, we're building a new world. And you're gonna succumb to what we are telling you to do. And going back to the founding documents of America, right? Government at the behest of the people, government at the consent of the governed. And that's what we've had before, and we've lost our way, and we're gonna get back. But it's not going to be some easy walk in the park necessarily. And this is just another one of those hurdles to get around, and we will. The sun will come up tomorrow. That's why we had some people on the stream late last night. They're really hurting and stuff. And I'm sure there are people here in the chat. And again,
vibes are low.
Vibes are low. And like I said, we're all hurting to some degree. But no amount of losing Bitcoin or anything is worth your life. I'll say that right now. And so, praying for you, praying for people, everyone, and have been, pray for the network. I've prayed for the network for a long time. And, it's keep eyes on the prize here, and pick our heads up, and the sun will come up tomorrow, and we just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And that to me is the big thing, because that's what the devil wants, right? The devil wants you quitting. He wants you forfeiting. He wants you giving up. He wants some cheap wins. And it's
fear.
Yeah, exactly. So
fear, anxiety, stress, all that stuff. And I know it's hard, and it literally feels, I was thinking about this too. It's like, you almost have this feeling like there was an attack on human life. And I was like, why is that? Like, it feels as devastating as like we lost a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Like it's the same feeling. But to me, I think the reason for that is because Bitcoin is different than the fiat, than the banking system, than the traditional financial system, because it actually it represents something. It represents energy. And what is life? What is time? Exactly. What is Bitcoin? Like it's all the same stuff. So, if to me, I was thinking about, like, if you lost a couple Bitcoin because of this hack, that's essentially like somebody stole a piece of your life, of your time, of your energy that you had already contributed, or that you would have saved in the future, that you could do whatever you want with it. It is literally like stealing people's time, which is what is when somebody dies. You take away their time from their physical existence anymore. And it's very similar to that. It feels like the same level of devastation, because it was literally somebody stealing somebody else's time and life and energy. So I kind of understand why we have this feeling right now, because it is literally like people died or got a portion of their life taken from them. Because when you think about it, like, when are people most devastated? When it's a child or a 90-year-old? They both died. But why is it that people are way more devastated when it's a child or a teenager or a young guy or a girl that died? It's because they had time taken away from them. Obviously, it's sad when you're 90.
I'll be back 1 second. Hold on.
Yeah. Obviously, it's awful when your 80, 90-year-old grandfather or grandma dies, but like, they had time. They had their life, and people aren't as devastated. Obviously, it's still horrible, but when you compare that to a child or a teenager or a young adult, that's what the devastation is. It's that they had time stolen from them. And that's really what happened with this hack, with this Coldcard hack, is that people had their time, their energy in Bitcoin, and it was stolen from them. So it was the same kind of thing to me anyways. That's kind of how I'm thinking through this and trying to understand why I'm feeling so, just down about this. But, the people in the chat here, who have been here for the show so far, I didn't expect this much positivity, to be honest with you. I thought that there was going to be a bunch of people saying, "Hey, Jor, thanks for recommending Coldcard." So it is. I have a lot of hope, and there's been some comments saying, this is going to make us stronger, and it is. The best kind of lesson that you can learn is when you feel it, when you actually experience it deep inside of your soul, but you're still okay. You maybe you roll your car, you have a couple of drinks, a couple beers after work or after a hockey game or a golf game, you roll your car and you go through that same sense of like that's the same experience, but you live to tell about it. And I feel like this is the same kind of thing that's happening in Bitcoin right now. We all had that feeling of, is our Bitcoin safe? We had that experience, but it was. And so I don't expect people to take this for granted. I think that there is going to be people who take action very soon, very quickly, not too quick though, but significantly improve their setups going forward. And the people who are here in Bitcoin in self-custody, we're going to be a million miles ahead of where we would have been otherwise. And so it sucks. It's horrible, but we're all here. We survived the car crash, and we get to change the way we proceed forward, I guess.
Yeah, I love it. You said I had to make sure the garbage was out. By the way, I heard the garbage truck coming down the road. I was like trying to text my wife, and I was like, "Hey, can you make it the kids to go send that?" I was like, "You know what? Screw it. I gotta go." Let her run around the house. Yeah, I love it. You were saying that though, because like it's look at all the loss in the fiat system, and people like, yeah, whatever. Like, you know, billions lost here, billions lost there. Yeah, I mean, it's just like. It's just, and so like when it's Bitcoin, it just hits so different, you know, and it's yeah, man, oh man, it's just wild how different it is. And
because it's real.
Yeah, because it's real. Exactly. It's actually scarce. It's the only truly finite asset protocol we have in humanity. So it just hits different. You know, in saying that, fortunately, those humans are still here. So it feels like we lost humans, but fortunately the humans are still here. And that's why we were saying earlier, again, the sun will come up. Peter McCormick shared a really good post for people that did lose, you know, Bitcoin, any amount of Bitcoin. He had shared a post about losing Bitcoin from a number of years ago. And so I would recommend people go look at that post. It was a good post. It's not super long. It's just about what he went through and people helping him and telling him then the sun would come up tomorrow, basically, and stuff like that. And he's like, and it did, you know, and I recovered and things are, you know, here I am, you know, type of thing. So anyway, it just a good reminder again. So,
yeah, I think I saw that actually, Brandon.
Peter
had a couple good posts this weekend.
Yeah, he
did. Couple in light of all the darkness, there was a couple good posts. And okay, so I just sent that message to Daniel, and I see there was one more right here. So this is a good comment here from Otto. And Otto said, best safe setup with 24 words, 100 plus 100 dice rolls with stronger passphrases. This is your 25th word. That's your hidden key. This setup very safe for me and for anybody. Yeah, I think that this is probably like the best place to start for people, because it's always, you know, one thing I've always said is like you can't move from a single sig to a multi-sig overnight. You have to have some experience with it, because it's really easy for somebody to mess up a multi-sig if they don't know what they're doing with it. And not like, again, it's easy to set up. It's pretty simple to set up. Honestly, the hard part is making sure it's all backed up properly in case something goes wrong. So I think that this is kind of like the best play once you've already moved your Bitcoin out of your Coldcard into something safe. For the time being, this is probably the best type of solution to it. So 24 words with 100 dice rolls. I guess that's kind of like the minimum for the 24 words. I think Daniel's going to come on here right away and talk about a different alternative to this. But yes, this seems like the best kind of in between spot on your way to a multi-sig. Don't stop at this, in my opinion. Anyways, again, everybody's going to have a different level of comfort and everything like that. But I think that this is, you should strive for a multi-sig. I think that that's going to be like the new floor, the new foundation in Bitcoin, just because it mitigates a lot of the risk.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny too. Again, you can have different You can have, I know for a long time, I had multiple wallets. They were all single sig, but I just hedged, kind of like an investor hedge, right? Like you have a put option or a call options, things like that. Whereas like, hey, I had just like, this is early on, like I was telling a story before of like 8 years ago where I had a couple wallets and, got some cheap ones or whatever it was, but it's like you had a couple single sig, but they were hedged. Like I had a third here, a third here, and a third here. So it's like a pseudo multi-sig, if you will, but it's just a hedge. So like if one, and they're different manufacturers, right? So it's like, if this one went down, well, that sucks. I got these, So there's so many, obviously so many ways. So here's Daniel though. What's going on, Daniel?
Daniel, how you doing, man?
Good. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Awesome. What a weekend, huh?
Wild times.
What a weekend.
Wild
what a weekend
times.
It was.
Yeah.
Usually Brandon and I, we do these streams every Monday morning, and usually they're a lot more uplifting, getting ready, getting people ready for the week. But today's a little bit different, but this is a very important chat. So Daniel actually just had this comment up on the screen. I don't know if you saw it there or not, but it is from Otto here. And he said, the best setup, 24 words plus 100 dice rolls with a strong passphrase is the best setup for anybody right now. And I tend to agree with that. The 100 dice or something similar to that, kind of in the temporary. I still think that people should be making their way to a multi-sig. It seems like it makes much more sense to me. You could still use that same process just with 3 different keys that you generate on your own, but it's a 2 of 3 instead of a 1 of 1 or a 2 of 2, I guess, with a passphrase. But you had you shared something with the group yesterday that I thought was interesting, or maybe it was today, but with cards. So maybe what do you want to do with this, Daniel? Do you want to explain it, or do you want to? I'll just let you chat.
I'll talk about why I came up with cards instead of dice rolls.
Okay.
Here's my takeaway on dice rolls. I used dice rolls when I did my move this weekend, no doubt about it. The problem with dice rolls is you have to have a casino level setup to even get close to, the entropy, because anything you do is going to introduce biases into the randomness, right? And with dice, I mean, literally, the oil on your hand, the weight and the balance of the dice, the surface you roll it on, the shake. There's so many different ways of introducing bias into it. I don't know if you guys are familiar with an author named Neil Stephenson, but he wrote a book called Cryptonomicon, which was all about cryptography, married to a really gripping yarn. It was a pre-Bitcoin book. But one of the things that's in the book is they used to create one-time pads for the Allies, especially for the British in the war. And they had the vicar's wife reach into a big old box ball. She was supposed to close her eyes, put her hand in and pull out a ball and write down the number, right? And she'd just make these pads that were full of numbers, and they sent them off to people, and they used those as one-time pads. But the Germans in the book actually break it because she wasn't really vigilant about keeping her eyes closed. And she started to know the feel of the different balls. And she introduced enough bias into it that in the book, they actually break the one-time pads, which are supposed to be unbreakable, right? So think of dice rolls and all of the variables in dice that can cause the entropy to be much lower than you thought, right? So I still think rolling 100 dice is a good idea. Mm-hmm. But what if you're using shitty dice? What if you're using dice that are not properly weighted? Those variables are beyond your control. So I started to dig deeper. And for cards, you can get playing cards anywhere, right? And it's pretty easy to do a good shuffle on playing cards. You lay them all out on the table, you mess them around, then you do a riff on them, and you can get pretty good randomness. And the size of the entropy in a pack of cards is even higher, right? It's pretty damn good. It's close to 256, 256 bits. So it's really, really good. And the bias is one freaking thing. You shuffle the cards right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And someone has already come up with this. I think it's called Seed Keeper Solitaire. This thing you can do to pick your cards and tie them to BIP 39 words, right? So for me, I think if I'm going down, and I've already done dice roll, so I'm not saying I'm perfect, and I don't think dice roll is should be off the table either. But your seed phrase is forever, my friend, right? it's not like it has to last for a year or 5 years like a Coldcard will, right? Because Coldcards aren't going to be, they're only going to last for about 5 to 10 years. Any device that you have will only last that long, right? So I think you need to make a seed phrase that someone who is a cryptographic, genius won't be able to break, or will have a really hard time breaking. I saw someone in the chat say that they trust the Trezor, remote or random password generator, this hardware generators. I don't trust any of them anymore. Maybe I'm just being paranoid, right?
No,
but
I think that's a play.
Don't trust verify. Now I really, really believe in that, right? I'm not like, I got to trust somebody else to make my seed phrase. And I realize how crazy that is now. You know what I'm saying? So that's why, to me, if you practice with a deck of cards, right, and you have this model, and I'm Alex and I on the Bitcoin Citadel School are actually going to put together a workshop that people can take to just walk through the whole process, right? So you can do it on your own. And just like you said, George, you didn't sweat this weekend because you knew you're using cold cards all the time. You know how to move things around, right? And I think people forget about that. Proof of work is another lesson we learn in Bitcoin, right? And putting the work in, to me, to protect my stack, I don't mind learning how to use cards to come up with my own entropy. And what I'm going to do when I do it is I'm going to come up with a whole bunch of them, and I'm going to put them in the seed vault on my queue, and I'm going to scan them into QR codes, encrypted QR codes, and eventually I'll put those in my Citadel vault. So if I ever need a seed phrase, or I need seed phrases to create a multisig, I'll have a whole bunch of them that I already have ready, and I can just use them for any device that I'm going to use. Does that make sense? I mean, that's my thought process.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, kind of going off of that, I think a question for anybody who's listening into this, like, if you were to use cards or dice or whatever, Daniel's suggesting using cards here and the solitaire method of doing it. But if you wanted to generate like 10 different versions of that, or 20 different seed phrases for that, you could actually still you could take 3 of those and create a multisig based on those 3 keys, right? And just use the devices itself to import into there. Because this device, I mean, it's taking a lot of shit right now online, and for good reason, but it's not connected to anything. It's not connected to the internet, any sort of networks. Whatever you're doing on this it's the device itself. And so you could take 3 of those, import them into here, sign the multisig to set it up, and do that 3 times. Like, is that correct?
Oh yeah. I mean, think about it. Let's play a thought experiment now. Let's just be completely tinfoil hat. Let's say that Rudy is a Mossad agent, right? And he's been that way since the very beginning, and he convinced people of good faith like Marty, like Odell, like BTC Sessions, like you, like me, probably like Brandon too, right? To that the cold card was great, right? No one ever said, and the seed phrase generation fell apart, right? No one ever said that the device itself isn't a great signing device. Bitcoin only, air gapped completely. All of that functionality is still fine, right? And even if he is a bad actor, that doesn't mean that stuff isn't still good, right? That stuff still works. Even if he was a bad actor, he can't, unless he teleports into your house, right? He's not going to break that. So to me, all the device is a convenience for easy signing. That's all it is, right?
Yeah, it's a good user interface, right, Daniel? Yeah,
that's all it is.
Yeah.
And Brandon, I'm completely with you. When I first heard about Bitcoin, that was the thing that turned me off about it. It's like, I don't want to have to be some total geek to get this. I wish I was. I wish I had made that effort then, right? In retrospect. But I think there's a good trade-off. And I think that having some sovereignty, some control over your seed phrase is critically important, right? I don't trust Trezor. It could be 20 quintillion times better than Coldcard in theory, but don't trust verify means I can't trust them to create my seed phrase. That's the bottom line with me, which is why in our Citadel Vault product, we had a seed generator that we were going to ship with, right? We're not going to ship with that seed generator anymore. We're going to require dice rolls. So we'll have all of the state-of-the-art automatic seed generation stuff in there, but you don't stop there. You have to roll dice too. So you have your own private, even if the dice rolls aren't perfect, even if there are biases introduced, you're going to have a lot of entropy just based on the dice rolls that you do, right? So I think that that's the sweet spot that we've kind of come up with. And again, we're still talking about it because this thing only just happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think I want a simple seed signing device, right? Which is why I'm so happy, Jory, you convinced me to get a seed signer. I don't know if it was you or Craig, but I had that seed signer, which I hadn't really played with much. And this weekend, believe me, that came in handy. Though I did do a test where I took my Q and my MK4 and I ran the same dice rolls through all 3 devices. And each one of them came up with the same seed phrase, the same 23 words, and then that 24th word of checksum, right?
And just for people who might not be as technical out there, what that basically means is you record your dice rolls, or your in this case dice rolls, or you're flipping a coin if it's heads or tails or 1, 2, 3, 4. You can use these different things where you basically take your random inputs, like a 2, 4, 5, 1. You take your random input and it converts it into a very strong private key based on your input. So if you had like a 6, if you roll the dice 6 times, that's a very small input that could be easily guessed. But if you do it 100 times, that's way more entropy in there. If somebody were to get the exact same dice rolls or heads, tails after 100, what are the chances of that? It's like
it's almost impossible.
Almost impossible, or maybe even impossible, Yeah. So that's kind of what Daniel's saying here is you take your inputs, dice rolls, whatever it is, and it converts it into private key, which then converts it into 12 or 24 words based on your inputs.
Yes.
And so the more you have, the greater the entropy for that output of it.
And I don't know if you guys remember way back, I think it was 2022, Coldcard had a dice roll option, but it didn't require 50 rolls. It didn't require 100
That's
rolls.
Right.
And some influencers I think this was a good thing they did, is say, be careful with these dice rolls because people got wrecked right away, right?
Yep.
Some people did 1 dice roll and had a seed phrase created from that. And that entropy is less than a byte. That's like 6 bits of entropy. It's really low. Maybe it's a little more than that, but it's something that you could on your laptop while you're drinking your coffee break. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So a lot of folks said, hey, don't do that. Use the auto generate because it's going to be better than what the dice rolls. People make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. That's a really painful mistake to make. So I think dice roll became like way down on the list of people's, a lot of people, some people got it. They said the dice rolls were where I'm going to go. And these are the OG Bitcoiners, right? Who were around before Coldcard was a revelation. Trezor was a revelation. Ledger was a revelation with auto-generated seed phrases. And a lot of people were like, that's for me. The barrier is now low enough that I can get in, But what folks didn't realize is that we forgot that don't trust, verify is the key of Bitcoin, and we started to trust people and we forgot about that problem, right? So now just for me personally, and I think people who are probably smarter than me may trust those, RPGs, those hardware RPGs.
Yeah.
Software RPG, never for me. It's not going to happen, right? They may trust it and they may say, Dan, you're a fool. Those things are better than any dice roll or any card. Random numbers are really tough. It's a tough computer problem, right? And what it does is it eliminates biases that you may have with poor shuffles or you may have with poor dice roll technique, right? But it takes away your autonomy, your sovereignty, and it gives that away to some third party who you have to trust, right? So for me, that was the revelation I had, you guys, this was a terrible situation. It's probably one of the most terrible situations we've ever had in Bitcoin, right? But for people who are willing to, we know it's going to be a hard road. Jor, I've talked to you about this. That night we talked in Vegas, I said, it's the eye and the needle we have to go through. And not everyone's going to make it. And my prediction is that as few Bitcoiners who had Bitcoin in 2011 still had it 10 years later or 15 years later, right? That's as many as they're going to have it 10 or 15 years from now, right?
Yeah.
Because stuff like this is going to continue to happen. And this, Brandon, this was not on my bingo card. Believe me, it wasn't at all, right? But it's another thing that's going to shake people out, and they're going to go back to exchanges. They're going to go back to ETFs.
Yep.
And now that's what the man wants you to do. I say the overlords now, half jokingly, right? But that's exactly what they want you to do. And who knows if this was something that was intended to shake people up? There's so much going on right now, right? So I think for Bitcoiners who are in it for the freedom, right, and the sovereignty, to me, maybe it's a short-term solution, but that's just giving up. We didn't just lose, people didn't just lose their Bitcoin. Even us, everyone who used a Coldcard, they're going to continue to crack these Coldcard keys, anything that was online, right? And all of your UTXOs, all your transactions, everything that had to do with the wallet that you created on the Coldcard will eventually be accessible to these hackers and the NSA, anyone who wants that information. So people who did coin joins on a Coldcard, people, all of these folks are now at risk for that, which is terrible. And I haven't heard too many people talk about that, but that's another thing that we lost with this, right? We have to start where we are and move forward, obviously, but the pebble just dropped and the ripples are spreading out, right? And we don't know what the end result is going to be, but what we can do is take it as a wake-up call, right? And we can up our game and we can say, hey, you know what? Like you said, Jor, 5% of my stack goes into security. You have to be constantly vigilant in Bitcoin, right? And you have to accept that as part of the contract, right?
Yeah, and
part of what Bitcoin is. And if you can do that, I think this will make us stronger, and it will make self-custody even a better option.
Because it's easy for me to sit here and say that. Obviously, for somebody who does this for my job, people are like, oh, 5%, until something like this happens. But also, that's 5% of your money dollar wise. Mm-hmm. It also requires a bunch of your time too. Like you can't just do it and hands off, you're done, unless you're trusting a third party with it. Unless you want to leave it with an Unchained or at an exchange or Anchor Watch or whatever the hell it is. But the more sovereignty you want, the more time you got to put into this thing. It's a direct trade-off. If you want no involvement in terms of like knowledge, repetitions, then just leave it with somebody else, but you have zero sovereignty then. If you want that sovereignty, then you have to put in the time. You have to invest your time, your money into this. And that's the trade-off that people are going to make. It's not for everybody. I understand that. But for the people who are in Bitcoin for the sovereignty, it requires your time and energy and constant repetition of doing this stuff and paying attention to things and learning more. It's a never-ending journey of knowledge and learning, and you just don't want to be at the bottom of it, like the MK3's single sig wallets. That was the low-hanging fruit in this case. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that next week it's not going to be the MK4s. So you have to just stay on top of this stuff and constantly work at it. Yeah. It's not something that you can just throw money at and all your problems are solved if you want that sovereignty.
Yeah. And here's the thing. What we've seen so far has come in waves, right? And a lot of it was automated, and it all went to very specific Bitcoin addresses, right? And it's still there. It hasn't moved. It hasn't been laundered at all. But now we're seeing small operators come in and crack this thing, right? And put it into addresses and launder it right away, right? So this is only beginning. This is not over by any stretch of the imagination. I would caution people that if you just have a one-word passphrase, this 13th word or 25th word on your MK3, MK4, MK5, Coldcard Q, once the low-hanging fruit is gone, guess what's the next thing they're going to go after, right? Someone asked in the chat about creating passphrases, and I think you have to be careful with passphrases. And what I think is I can't use a 12-word or 24-word passphrase. It's too much, right? Because when you're using the passphrase, you need to be able to remember it. You need to be able to enter it correctly, all that kind of stuff. So I think a 5 or 6 word passphrase is probably fine, right? But you have to be very careful in generating that as well.
Yeah. But even so, like, wouldn't you say, Daniel, that having a password phrase of any level is better than not having a passphrase?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
you and I have argued about this before. And I used to say, who needs a passphrase? But I'm lucky that I had passphrases on my MK4s, and my Coldcard Q, just because, I talked to you and I was like, you know what, that's a good idea. I had a 1-word passphrase, from the BIP 39, but I'm so glad I did it now. I'm like, man, uh, you know, that was a really good piece of advice that you gave me, right?
It just adds another layer of security to it. Like that's all I ever saw it as. Like, yeah, somebody could guess 12 words of this, they might happen to get it, but yeah, then you have to combine that with that other word there to get this new wallet.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like such an easy way to level up your security and add an additional layer to it.
Yeah.
I mean, it adds more complexity to it, I guess, because you have one more thing to manage there. But I still think that far outweighs the risk of not having that. To me,
a great trade-off. Not only that, but you can have more than one wallet on your Coldcard, right?
Exactly.
Or on your other device. So you can have, I have several based on the passphrase to differentiate the wallets, right? So I think the benefit of it is worth it, worth the additional complexity.
So I just wanted to bring this up here because I think that this is kind of cool, and it's easier to see it instead of try to explain it.
That's a great site. I love that site.
Yeah, this is iancoleman.io, and it might have been you who showed me this years ago, Daniel. I don't even know. But the point is here is like we were talking about the dice rolls. So this is where you put your entropy in here. And this is such a cool website because it actually shows you an approximate time that somebody could crack this. And kind of what Daniel was alluding to before is that Coldcards used to give you the option to add a dice roll, but they weren't specific in terms of like what it should be. And I still remember the podcasts that NVK did with Odell to say, hey, we need to let people know that rolling the dice 6 times is actually going to make your private key much less secure than just using the random number generator, right? Mm-hmm. Which, did that turn out to be true? I don't know. But the point is that you need to have a sufficient amount of dice rolls here, and you can't just like plunk them in here because, I mean, that's the whole point of this, is to add entropy through dice, through just, entropy in the world through dice or through cards or through flipping a coin. But you see here is it generates this BIP 39 based on your entropy here. Mm-hmm. And so you could actually go through the process of verifying, like Daniel said there, he did it with 3 different devices, the MK4, the Q, and the seed signer. He put his entropy into here and it gave the exact same mnemonic for all 3 of them, which means that it's doing its job essentially. And so you look at this and you could put more in here and the time to crack goes up. Every different input that you change with this changes the output of them.
Yep.
So see, you add a 2 here, it changes your words. You add a 3, it changes your words again. So this is all based on your inputs, your entropy based on the randomness that you decided to have. Mm-hmm. And so the more you have there, the harder it is to crack, I guess you'd say.
Yeah. And one thing I want to be really clear about is, because I used this website this weekend, but don't use the passphrase that you put into this website to test the efficacy of your dice rolls. Do a dice roll run, use that run, put it in here just to verify what your entropy is. There's other sites that will give you an even clearer understanding. Well, this is actually really pretty damn good, of the entropy that you're creating, right? But then get rid of that, right? Because you don't want to have any opportunity. You don't even want to write down the seed phrase, right?
Right.
You don't want any opportunity to actually use that in your seed signer, in your Coldcard, in whatever device you're using, because obviously that seed phrase is on the internet, right? So
you just use that to test it, to make sure that your device is generating the right one.
Well, and not only that, but to test the dice rolls that you're doing, right? Because, I mean, are providing the amount of entropy that you want them to provide. You know what I mean? So it's not perfect. Here's the thing. You can even test the individual dice if you want, right? You can roll. You should have, if you roll 100 times, there should be approximately 17 of each number in that 100 roll list, right? Because there's 6 numbers on the dice, and 100 divided by 6 is 16.66666 on forever, right? So if you have a dice that's poorly weighted, It's not a perfect test, right? But you can tell if it's a really bad dice if you roll it and the numbers are all over the place. I mean, it's random and probabilistic, so you may have outliers where the dice is still good and you have a low number, right? There's also a test that you can do. I can't remember the name of it. I've been talking back and forth with Perplexity about this thing for hours. But you can test the validity of the dice to a certain extent, right? But to me, there's a great video that I saw of some guy who was doing this, and he was taking the dice in his hand. He had an anti-static glove on it, which is actually pretty cool. But he didn't even shake it much. He just kind of dropped them on the table. They bounced once, and he was writing down the numbers. That is not random. That's the kind of thing like the vicar's wife going in there and picking the balls out with bias, right? You have to get a Yahtzee shaker. You have to have a good table. You should probably have felt on it because that's what they do in the freaking casinos, right?
Don't you think there's enough? If you're doing it 100 times, though, don't you think that there's enough randomness just involved with that, though, overall?
There is for the short term.
Okay. Because, I mean, even if you like look at we kind of talked about how your input changes the output here, like your mnemonic. But if you look at this, like this is like 15 dice rolls as an example, and it would take less than a second for somebody to crack that.
Right.
And then you add, 20 more, and all of a sudden it goes to centuries.
Yep. It's exponential as you each number you add in, each dice roll you add in, if it's truly random. Because do me a favor, put in all ones and see what it says.
Yeah, it'll say like
it'll still say centuries. Probably. Well, see, keep doing ones forever. Okay, great. So it does consider the actual numbers that are going in. That's great because you wanted to think of that because it's keep in mind that there's going to be people who are like Alan Turing, right? People who are geniuses in cryptography. That's your adversary, right? It's not me that's your adversary, right? It's that guy, right? So that guy is going to be the one who's going to break it. Those guys at the NSA, I think this might have been a nation state attack that took down NVK. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And all that Bitcoin can go into a strategic Bitcoin reserve for some lucky player, who knows? The legal case is going to go forever. I think CoinKite is going to have a really tough time moving forward as a viable business because their people are us, the people who are, we don't trust anyone, right? We shouldn't, right? And now it's going to be really difficult for them to rebuild that trust. I like Rudolph, though. I think he's a great guy. He's a builder. He's shipped products, he's done all that really, really good stuff. But this is an Achilles heel. This is a big deal, I'll still use my cold cards as signing devices because I have them, and I don't think that it's been proven that I think they're still best of breed for some of the things that they do, right? But I'm not even going to update my firmware. I've heard people are bricking their cold cards, just updating the firmware. And
I've seen that too. I didn't update mine.
So, I'm super cautious, and it was a wake up call, and I'm taking it as such. And maybe I'm going overboard, but
no, you can't. You can't go overboard in Bitcoin with this kind of stuff. You just can't.
The only thing I'll say about NVK, I don't know that much about him, truth be told. So it's just, to me, it's a lesson in humility. I just was not a fan of the way he acted. So separate from what you're saying, Daniel, obviously, like you can compartmentalize a builder, the intelligence of someone, or whatever, and then how they acted. Yeah. To me, I think it was one of the reasons I probably never went down the road for whatever reason with Coldcard. I don't know why, but it was just for me, that was a lesson in humility. Yeah. Because whether just going back to, you have a blind spot, we all have blind spots, but the blind spots can be bigger because of a lack of humility. And then if something does happen, which we know we all F up in life in some way, shape, or fashion, then getting grace from whoever it's an important thing as well when you do fall. So to me, I think like putting those two things together, Daniel, I think is important for people to see both those things.
The hubris was incredible, right?
Right.
And to look at what happened. NVK would just cap on anybody who said anything bad about a cold card, any competitor, right? They were never as good. Have you seen the guy from Seed Signer say anything like that about NVK? You know, NVK would crap on that guy all the time. And as far as I know, and I've been, you know, like you guys, I've been really keeping a close eye on it. I have not seen that, you know, so that kind of hubris is great in a way. We'll forgive you for that if you're if you're delivering like an all-star, you know, if you're the LeBron James of, you know, signing devices, sure, you can get away with some stuff, right? But when the mighty fall, all the little guys like to watch. You know, it is a spectator sport, and that's what's going on now. Which is why people, have you seen the videos of people smashing their cold cards and things like that? It's like,
I've seen those one
crazy.
or two. Yeah.
It's like you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, in my opinion. You know, you have this device, you spent a lot of Bitcoin on it, because I bought my cold cards with Bitcoin. You know what I mean? I'm not throwing them away. I'll use them for the purpose that they use them for. And this, for example, this weekend, the seed vault helped out a lot of people that I talked about. You know, Alex in our visionaries community said, why don't you just bring them into your seed vault and use them temporarily and move your funds? And that was the solution for the problem for this person. So the device is a good device. I think that it's going to be a tough sell moving forward. I think his new Arca device, which is he's been hyping and was supposed to ship in January, I'm not sure where that's going to go. I think he kind of fell into the trap of being a Silicon Valley style developer. Add feature after feature after feature. All this bloat went into the Coldcard. Just give me a simple signing device. That's all I want. You know what I mean? Though, Brandon, I do agree with you. That Coldcard Q is a beautiful device. It reminds me of the BlackBerry. So easy to use, so user friendly. You know, what a wonderful piece of engineering that was from the user perspective, ease of use standpoint. Just a great device.
Yeah, exactly.
Daniel, I was gonna bring up that solitaire thing that you have, but you're going to do that somewhere else, or do you want to share that with people, or what? I think I'm going to try that out today myself. And maybe just while you're on the topic, just explain maybe what the seed vault is, because it's part of the Coldcard, but like what it is and what you're using it for right now.
So the cool thing you can do is, and I just talked to Alex this morning, and what I'm going to do is when I have my keys that I generate from the code, all you need is 3 documents. You need the BIP39, you need the seed keeper how-to guide, and the seed keeper chart, which maps the output from the cards to the BIP39 list, right? That's all you need. And then practice, right? Those are the things that you need. But when I generate my seed phrases, I'm going to put them in the seed vault, because if I need to temporarily use another seed on the same device, because the Coldcard device is really married to one master seed phrase, right? You can create temporary ones, but the easiest way to get a temporary one in there is to have it in your vault, because then you can just swap it in and use that seed phrase right away from your Coldcard. You're not creating a new seed phrase, you know, on the fly. You already have them created, and you have them in your seed vault, and you can back up that Coldcard to a micro SD card and put that in your safe deposit box if you want to do that. Those safe deposit boxes, I use safe deposit boxes in my strategy, but I talked to people who couldn't get to them this weekend. It was a long weekend in Canada. They still can't get to them right today. So that's the hole in that plan that we didn't think about is, well, what if their emergency happens and you need to get access to your device right away? You know, what if you have all of your encrypted QR codes and all that other stuff in a safe deposit box? You don't have access to that stuff until Monday, right? Or until Tuesday. So that's another thing I've been rethinking too, as far as my whole setup. Wake up call. It's awesome. I feel so bad for the people who got wrecked, but for us, even for people who did get wrecked, if you're still going to stay in Bitcoin, this is a really good wake up call, right?
Okay, so just the last thing I want to talk about is the cards, because I want to do that myself today. So basically, that when you're using that cards, the solitaire option instead of the dice, that essentially means you're not actually putting the entropy into anything. You're like basically just using the cards to generate it itself, right?
So what you do is you take the cards, you shuffle them really, really well, and then you start to flip them over. And anytime you get 2 cards in a row that are different suits, You take them out of the stack and you put them aside, and you go through the entire deck. Anything that didn't meet that criteria, you put those away, right? And you keep doing it until you have 23 pairs or tuples of cards, right? Then the chart that you download will match the BIP39 word with the tuple that you put in. So ace of spades and king of diamonds is one specific BIP39 word. Does that make sense? Yep. So that's I mean, that technique has been around for a long time, right? I think it's very well proven, and it's been, it's been vetted. You know what I mean? It's been peer reviewed already. So I think it's a pretty good technique. And I think the reason I'm going for that, and I think dice rolls are still legitimate. Use them if you want, but I'm looking for forever keys. So for me, I think because there's only one bias in the cards, right? And that is brand new deck of cards. All of them look the same from the back. You can't feel them and they're different, right? All you got to do is have a good shuffle, right? And shuffling is a pretty achievable thing for most folks, right? You can do that. It's not something tricky, as opposed to dice rolls, which have more biases that can come in. And people are going to say, oh, Dan, if you roll it 100 times, the entropy is so good, it doesn't even matter if the dice are that great. It doesn't short term, but it's not a forever key, in my opinion. You know, you want it to be quantum proof, because that's coming down the pike. I mean, it's going to blow up just like this when that comes down the pike too. So,
and in addition to that too, even if you roll the dice 100 times, it's still like, it should be random, but also it could be random that somebody just guesses that, or the AI picks it up. So you still, even though you have that, whether you're using 100 dice rolls or the card technique that I'm going to be using today, you still want to layer on top of that. You still want a strong passphrase to make that part even stronger. Yep. And then you want a multisig. So you have you need two of those to do that. Somebody would have to hack two of those keys and not spending out of the multisig unless you have to. Like, there's different layers to this. It's a good starting point, but you still need to be stacking on top of that, right?
Yep. You want to balance complexity with usability. So it's still the same trade-offs we've always had. And really, you just have to it's your mental game in a way that's been tested almost as much as anything else. And we as Bitcoiners have to have a practice, right? We can't panic. The price action can't throw us. These kinds of technical issues can't throw us. We have to find a way through it. And that's why the eye of the needle is so small. And that's why so few people are going to get through it.
This is something that we've talked about many times, right? Bitcoin is not an IQ thing. It's an EQ. This is so important. The humility part of Bitcoin, and lowering the ego, raising the humility. And whether it's, like you said, the price action, Daniel, or these things, these hurdles, the wars, this and that, it's all emotional intelligence. And can you stay calm in all the storms? And can you keep going, or do you turn back at some point and say, you know what, I'm going back on the Titanic. It's just too much. It's too much. Yeah. It's EQ, 100%.
100%. And that's why a community like this and what you guys do is so important, because that does give people company. It's better to have company on the lifeboat than it is to be in the lifeboat all by yourself. You know what I mean?
100%.
Well, that's what I said, is like throughout the weekend, there was probably 600 to 700 messages of people in that chat, just asking questions, clarifying things. Everybody okay? Like, you don't realize how important that stuff is until something like this happens. And, we're incredibly fortunate to be here, but also to be surrounded by such great people and who really want to help. That's the whole thing, is that, like, people want to help. We are, people might say, well, not everybody's equal. We're not all in Team Bitcoin. I disagree, man. If you're fighting this fight, if you're fighting for self-custody, we're all on the same page, because the more there are of us, the stronger that we are overall. If there's only a few people doing this over here and over here, we're going to be defeated, because the fiat bullshit, they have unlimited money. They have godlike powers. When you can create energy essentially through fiat, it's a tough beast to slay here. And we have to kind of go through this whole thing as a unit, and not all fighting each other, not pointing the blame, just knowing, learning, and then taking action of how to improve ourselves in our own Bitcoin setups.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
the card thing, 'cause someone posted in the
Yeah.
chat about the cards. It's called Seed Picker. Seed Picker, all one word. Look up Seed Picker. It's called Seed Picker Solitaire. That's the name of the technique. And if you
Is it
Google,
on like the internet? Like what's the
yeah,
website?
yeah, yeah. I don't have it. I don't have it right in front of me, but there. Hold on a second. I'll put it in the chat.
Seedpicker.net.
I'll get it. Seed Picker Solitaire. I think it's on GitHub. Let's see. Seed Picker Solitaire. That's not where I got it. Let me see if I can find their website. Yeah. So here's the PDF. I'm going to post it right into the chat on Rumble because that's where. Or am I guess I can't post it on YouTube because it's a URL. I'll chat it to you, Jordan.
Put it on. Just share it on Rumble, Daniel, and then I can copy and paste it and put it into YouTube.
I don't have Rumble up. Hold on. I'll just paste it onto into the. So this is it. I pasted it into the Signal, and you can just drop that into. Oh, it is on GitHub. Yeah, so it's on GitHub.
I just kind of want to bring this up because I am seeing a lot of people online like, oh, well, thank God I didn't use a coinkite. Jor's been shitting on Ledger for the last 3 years. Good thing I had a Ledger. It's like, you're missing the point of this. You don't want to rely on any wallet, whether it's Trezor, Coldcard, Ledger, anything. You don't want to rely on their private key generator. You want to come up with your own. As Daniel said here, if Trezor survives maybe a year or two, maybe. But we're talking about building this foundation for the next 100 years. And so even if it takes a little bit more time right now and you have to learn some stuff and invest some of your time or energy or money or all three, that's the whole point of building this foundation here. You don't want this just to be good for a couple of years because then this whole thing's going to repeat and we're going to go through all this shit again and again and again. So yes, it's going to take you time. You should have it somewhere kind of temporarily right now. But you want to move it into something that's absolutely robust and at the top of the ladder here, not the bottom rung or the lowest picking fruit here. You want to get that to be the top, and you don't want to rely on Ledger or Trezor to generate that for you, because who's to say that this isn't going to be the case with Trezor or Ledger in a month from now? Yeah, I know the entropy is higher, but we still don't know how capable the AI is using these generators. We don't know. Even if it's not there today, it could be there in a month or two from now. So do not rely for your forever setup here. Do not rely on any hardware device to generate your private keys. Don't panic, but start taking some steps and some action to make sure that you are generating your own. Did you share that, Daniel, or where was that?
I'm logging into Rumble right now. I posted it to you on Signal.
And lots of chats in here. One thing I'd say is like, we'll probably, how long do you guys have? Like another 10 minutes or so?
Yeah.
Daniel?
I got to jump in a few minutes, but
okay.
I just posted it into Rumble.
Okay.
That's the guide to how to use it, right? And you can get everything else you need from there. What you need is that guide, BIP39 word list, and there's a chart that has the mappings, right? And you can get all three of those. I posted them on. I'll post them onto the school too, Jor. I'll post them on the school today for people who are on that. For Maple Bitcoin.
Yeah, I'm gonna be doing that this afternoon. That's my whole day today is taking steps. Obviously, I'm not gonna build it all in one day, but I'm gonna start testing it, trying to map things out, and just trying to make things as robust as possible, no matter what it takes. Because I realized that how important this was to me, not just for myself, but for the people who watch the show and the people in the community. This is the whole thing here. This is the whole thing. If we end up, being right about Bitcoin, we know what it's going to do price-wise. We know what kind of impact it's going to have on the world, but we still need to get there. We still need to be finding our way through that little needle, the part of the needle that these guys have been talking about. We still have to do that. It's not going to be given to us or easy. It is a very difficult thing to do. It takes time. It takes energy. It takes all of you to set this up properly, think everything through, and then make sure that you can give it to your family too. Like, there's so much involved here. It's so much more than people think it is. And I think that if anything else this weekend, it proved that. It's not just a theory anymore that this is going to happen and that you need to do this. It proved everything that we've been talking about here and how important it is, and how serious that you need to be taking this stuff.
Yeah. And there's going to be more shakeouts. There's going to be more shakeouts, you know? And Brandon, you are absolutely right. It's not an IQ, it's an EQ thing, right? And you can work on things. You can do a meditation practice. You can run long distances. You can do hard things, and that's going to only help you as a Bitcoiner, you know?
Well,
it's getting your mental game down.
That's what I was thinking about, Daniel, is like, yeah, we've kind of seen the website and we've heard the news of how much Bitcoin were lost in this hack. But one thing we'll never see is how much Bitcoin was lost because people rushed and set something up. They didn't know what they were doing, and they go to open it up in 2 years from now, and they're not going to have the key to it because they added a passphrase. They forgot where they put their passphrase. I think the implications of like the panic part of this whole thing, we won't see for a couple years down the road. And that's also sad, but the reminder there is that, like Daniel's talking about here, and Brandon, mindset, being able to be calm no matter what's going on here, because when you're dealing with this shit, you can't be in a state of anxiety or fear because you're going to fuck something up. So you just have to take a couple deep breaths, you know, join a community so you can have somebody to kind of talk you down. All these things are so important for crises like this, even though they don't happen often. Man, when you look back and you see, yep, this is what I should have been doing. I just didn't think it would ever happen to me. But this weekend proved that it can and it will.
Think about an astronaut or a Navy SEAL. They practice over and over and over. So when they're in the thick of it, they don't have to think. They know, they have all the reps underneath their fingers and they've done it, you know, so they can go right through it. And that's where we have to be, you know. Bitcoin is a practice, you know. It's I think people will look back on it. I mean, especially this time in Bitcoin, it's almost like, you know, any other kind of spiritual or mental practice. That's as much a part of the game as anything, you know, because if price action shakes you out, guess what? You're shaken out. If this shakes you out and you put all your Bitcoin into an ETF or into an exchange, even River, great exchange, right? You lost, in my opinion. You're now, the overlords now have their thumb on you. You're not a Bitcoiner anymore. You know, and by my definition of a Bitcoiner, and I think all Bitcoiners or all stripes are great, but it's Bitcoiner. You're a Bitcoiner in my mind if you're a sovereign person.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You have zero sovereignty with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Zero, not some sovereignty. You have zero sovereignty with that because you're totally reliant on a third party.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. You might still see the price action that you want to see.
Exactly.
Guess what? Maybe when you want to get out and the price is right for you, you can't get out. You know, you guys lived through it in the trucker strike, right? Canadians should be more sensitive to this than almost anyone, right? Because literally this has already happened, you know, and in other countries even more so. So
okay, Daniel, we'll let you go. Where are you going to be doing that? Where can they find that if they want to tune into it? It's
going to be on Alex and I are working on it. It's going to be on the Bitcoin Citadel school page. Yep. And I'm going to share all the stuff with people, right? The workshop will be people who want a little bit of hand holding and want to walk through it and want to have the kind of the value add. I think open source is the best for everything. You know, let everybody have the documents they need. If you can figure it out on your own, more power to you, right? That's what I'm going to do, right? But if you want a community of people who are going to go through it together, right, and that kind of support, then that's who this is for.
Yeah, and it's honestly probably one of the most underrated, if not the most underrated communities in Bitcoin, I would say, just based on the price of it. And I think it's like $99 for a one-time. Is that what it is? Access?
Yeah. One-time access, $99. And there's we have some super smart people on there. My business partner, Craig, who's really the driving force behind Citadel Vault. I'm just the US reseller. You know what I mean? I'm a glorified salesman and a hardware tech. That's what I do. But he is one of these people who just has that kind of mind and really, really keeps up with everything, right? Yeah. And he's on there, right? Jor's on there. It's just a good community. I think the Visionaries community, Craig is on there too, is just a really, really worthwhile group of people.
It proved to be this weekend, literally, like this stuff that we said, when there's a crisis, you want people that have your back. that supports you, that can answer questions, if you're looking for something. So there's just a couple links there for people. I think that, one or the other would be a great idea to join. Both. I'd say the Bitcoin Citadel is more focused around like Bitcoin stuff, Bitcoin technical stuff, Bitcoin security stuff, inheritance. The Visionaries is a little bit more like, a bit of everything. It's got some AI stuff. It's got some self-improvement stuff. It's more of like a community that's very active, whereas the Bitcoin Citadel school is more technical stuff, more Bitcoin focused. Yeah. But both are great, obviously. So there, I just shared both in the chat there for anybody who's interested in joining. And then, when this happens in the future, you'll be probably in a little bit better spot. You won't be relying on Twitter or YouTube. You got your friends in there that you trust, that you've built trust with through the years. Yeah. That's where it comes into play.
Well, thanks for having me on, Brandon. It was nice to meet you.
Thanks, Daniel. Great seeing you.
And
thanks, Daniel.
I'll be on the other side of the screen.
What time are you doing that? Do you know?
Helping out.
I sent the first draft out today, so that I want to have it done by the end of the week, and we'll post the availability real soon. So it's going to be in the short term, because I'm not going to rebuild my multisig until I have keys I can trust, right? So
agreed.
And I have device diversity, keys I can trust. So I haven't rebuilt my multisig yet, but that's definitely something that's on the short term for me.
Okay. Well, thanks, Daniel. Appreciate you coming on. We'll talk soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, Brandon, where do you want to go from here? You want to wrap?
Yeah, I mean, we can wrap in a few minutes. Just amazing stuff. Obviously, there's so many good people in the community who we've been talking about, obviously, and just having community around you. The biggest thing is survival situations. What you guys just said, the groups, the chats, the peer-to-peer local meetups, even the big conferences. It's all of these things are so important. And because you just never know what you're going to need at the end of the day. And there's so many smart people out there, lurking in the shadows that are so incredibly smart, that have knowledge in all these areas that I could only dream of having. And so that's why it's trusting your senses and your intuition, right? I think that's where the trust has to come in a lot of the time, where it's trusting yourself, trusting your gut, trusting your own intuition, and then verifying externally much more, right? So again, lessons for everybody, just to trust your gut, trust your senses, listen to yourself. And it's hard. It's hard in this, one thing I talked about this weekend with people was overstimulation of the world, not just screens, but just the next thing and the next thing. We're going here, we're going there. The kids have this, we're doing that. Okay, we're going. It's okay to just be calm. It's okay to just sit around for a day or two, be bored, think about your security setup, think about your stuff, daydream, doodle in a journal, like it's okay to do that. And we're just, unfortunately, we've got to this point in life where it's just like go, 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 go. And everything is so just like, got to do the next thing, got to turn the TV on, music's on in the background, this and that. I'm as guilty as that with anybody. And, and it's just, that's not, you don't need to do that. Like, just be present. And so I think it's just a wake up call for many of us in many different ways moving forward. So,
yeah. And I 100% agree with that, man. That's really, when I got into Bitcoin and even started this YouTube channel, I had no idea where it was going to lead me. None. I had talked to a couple people who had recently got scammed. They didn't get hacked. They got scammed. And I just wanted to come on here every morning. I didn't expect to build anything from it or anything to come from it. I just wanted to talk to people who are willing to listen and say, here's a couple things you can do to maybe not have this happen to you, to not be the lowest hanging fruit. And the further I got down that road, the more I realized that, there's so much here. There's so much to think about. There's so many threat models. There's so many attack vectors. And it was literally just a result of me laying in bed at night and saying, if this happened, my Bitcoin would be gone. Mm-hmm. So I need to put something in place to make sure that doesn't happen. If my house burns down, what's going to happen? What are the implications of that? If somebody comes to the front door, what are the implications of that? What if I'm gone for the weekend and my Coldcard and my private keys are in my house? What are the implications of that? But that didn't come from watching YouTube videos, or it literally was me sitting there thinking about what could go wrong and really visualizing different things, different outcomes, different models. And then it just got to the point where I'm like, okay, this is an obsession of mine. I feel like I could help people with everything I've been thinking through here. Coldcard was a big part of that for me. Obviously, I didn't foresee this happening at all. But again, the people that have been listening to the show and part of the community, there was no Bitcoin lost because we had the passphrases, we had the multisigs, we had these things stacked on top of it because we actually thought through this stuff. And when you're just bouncing from one thing to the other, you're never going to take time and actually consider, what could actually go wrong. It's all here.
Yeah, it truly is. And it's, remember too, again, like 10 years ago, we had the fork wars then, bear markets, the wars, and Bitcoin took off after that. So remember, it's often darkest before the dawn, and excuse me, the calm before the storm. And I feel like in many ways that's where we are too. And again, I would not be surprised if these were big actors, whether it's suppressing the price, trying to shake people out, scaring people. We know Jamie Dimon for 10 years has been shitting on Bitcoin externally, and then internally they've been building their own stuff, building their own crypto trading desks, working on their own tokenization, stable coin type stuff, all in the background.
Yeah.
And again, this is why we've talked about this for years. And again, it sucks to have these events where because again, the only reason I do this stuff is because you're trying to stave off the bad things. And so that we don't have to touch the stove. We don't have to learn these lessons, and you as well. And we've talked about these things over time. And again, the battle is never going to be easy. You're separating money and state and patience, all shortcutting the process with, ETFs and trying to do all these shenanigans, like looking for like some Pied Piper to come and like, they're going to take us to the promised land. That's never how it's going to be. It's going to be science progresses one funeral at a time. And it's not sexy. That's not a sexy YouTube title. No, 0 people want to hear that.
Yep.
But it's the truth. It's going to be a bunch of bad shit mixed with opportunity and time. Sorry. And I could put that, I might just start putting that as my title every day I do a live stream, Jor. I might just have the same effing title every single day and just be like, don't care anymore. And I kind of do. And that's my personality. My personality is like very go against the grain. The cool kids in school are doing that. I immediately go the other direction. Hockey, the same way. Guys brown nosing the coach, immediately walk the other direction, like disgusted, like want to vomit type of personality I have, where I'm like, ew, get GTFO. Like I am could not get farther away from people like that. And so it's that to me is just like, I will beat my head against the wall just to prove a point and be like, I'm going to have the most ridiculous title and it's going to be the same every effing day just to prove the point. Don't care. If I have one person watch, don't care. And to me,
the 5 people that care, that's who you want to be talking to anyways, right?
That's irony, right? Exactly. And it's for ears to hear and eyes to see. And it is what it is. And trying to mix that with humility as well, because I know my personality of being stubborn at times, or having alpha in me, where it's just like I have to check myself, and I have to check myself before I wreck myself, as my aunt would always say. So that it's tough. You're trying to balance and ride those lines of ego and humility, and trying to ride the line of truth and as best we can, and verifying everything you can. But again, it goes back to trade-offs, probabilities, and incentives in life, and trying to ride that out. And again, the self-custody aspect, we know that the beautiful part about Bitcoin is it aligns incentives of human beings, everyone inside that protocol. So consumers and producers win, and on and on and on. And that's where, if you are removing yourself from that fight, maybe people are diversified into different assets. Hey, everyone's got to do their own thing. That's fine. I was in real estate for 10 years, and like we all have our different parts of life where we're in. Now, most people are not 100% in Bitcoin, because logistically you can't in a lot of ways, because I have this thing over here, I own that previously, and you can't get rid of it, or whatever it is, whatever's going on. But that to me is the most dangerous thing to come out of all this, is the I'm leaving Bitcoin, or like the I'm leaving self-custody. One of those two, or both of those thoughts, because the Bitcoin protocol still is doing what it does. It hasn't changed. And so kind of getting thrown in the baby with the bathwater, and then self-custody itself as well, getting thrown out, baby in the bathwater, getting thrown out, because that is what gives the network value. And 10 to 20 years from now, those people that stuck it out and hodled that whole time and prepared, did what they needed to do, they will obviously be much better off. And they get the benefit of those gains. And then person coming in 10 to 20 years from now, yes, maybe is it much easier? Is the user interface easier? Is it easier to operate many of these things? I'm sure it will be, you know, like just like it was 10, 15 years ago when I was worried about getting into self-custody, it was much harder. Like it wasn't super easy. It was way more complicated, right? And you remember this stuff, and I'm sure many people in the chat do. It has gotten easier, but to that point, because it does get easier, you can atrophy though a little bit. You can think, oh, it's not that hard. I don't have to verify that much. I don't have to do X, Y, and Z thing because it is easier. So you do have to, again, check yourself and make sure you're doing things. But the person getting in 10 to 20 years from now will have more adoption across the world because it's easier, quote unquote, to get into. But the beauty of that too is, yes, maybe they don't have as much Bitcoin gains or purchasing power in that sense, but their standard of living will have gone up a lot over time as the world heals and gets better as more people accrue wealth on a Bitcoin standard. That's the irony in all of this. The last person in Bitcoin still gets the benefits of society getting better around them because people are choosing to adopt the money that doesn't steal from them. The Bitcoin protocol, that is. That's the unbelievable part of Bitcoin and what Bitcoin does for humanity. And we cannot let that get lost. We cannot lose the forest from the trees here. And remembering that it's the path out. And it's this, I used to be a gold and silver guy too. It doesn't work. Money doesn't work on gold and silver. We've seen that for thousands of years, and it just physically can't work. The beauty of the physicality is what makes it not work as global money.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And it's, and this is the crazy part too. Bitcoin is voluntary. There's no government saying you need to, you got to use Bitcoin, or, here's this and this person gets that. And that's not what it is. It's literally the freest market there is. It's the fairest. I hesitate sometimes using that word. Because kids, like that word fair, and life is not fair, but it's the best dispersion of the money you could ever have. Because what's the alternative? It's just a government saying, a centralized guy or gal saying, okay, you get this, you get that. And as we just saw with Daniel, that's not a good way to do it. Cause then there's the entropy, like the oil on the fingers, like the same thing, right? There's always going to be some type of bias. And so here we are with Bitcoin. And people want to bitch, moan, and gripe about getting Bitcoin. The Mike Greens of the world were like, well, it's already mined. Like, how you're going to deny the rest of humanity who hasn't been born yet? It's like, well, I didn't get to invent or discover oil. I didn't get to build the railroad tracks. How come I wasn't born then, Mike? Is that fair? My family wasn't here first in America, the Americas. I didn't get Miami real estate. Is that fair? So it's this constant word of like fairness, and we need reparations and all this. This is the fairest system. You want a fair system? This is the system. This is the only system. It's a wild west of fairness.
I've been saying this over and over. It's like, it's not about equal. It's about fair. Right. And you might even look at like a thesaurus, and it might say, like, you type in equal, fair might be right beside it, but they're much different things.
It's equal playing field, not equal outcomes, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yes.
That's what scares the shit out of people, by the way. Equal playing field scares the shit out of people, scares the shit out of governments. Many people are very scared by it because the good old boys club is very scared of an equal playing field, because that means, hey, there's someone out there with more merit, more accountability, more responsibility than me, and he's going to rise above me. That scares the shit out of the good old boys club, which is, again, going back to the brown nosers, the people, sucking at the teat, oh, coach, oh, I love you. Oh, what can we do I repel from that. So I love an equal playing field. I love merit and accountability and responsibility. I am so geared toward that. And I hate brown nosing and suckling at the teat and the good old boys club so much that I will hurt myself in the short term and medium term because I will play the long game to work on a merit and accountability based platform or livelihood, versus I'm going to go suckle at the teat and be part of this gross, disgusting, fiat currency system. It's been in me since I was a child. Like I just repelled, even hockey. Like I didn't even know, like I didn't get along with half the guys I played with, because it was just like, dude, like who are you? Are you a woman? Like, what are you doing here? I mean, it's just like, just gross and gross. We tapped into something there. I'm not going to go down that road right now.
Main takeaway: Brandon thinks women are gross. Headlines.
Clip it.
Brandon's the new NVK, and we need to take some heat off of NVK.
Unreal.
But this is something I've been thinking about too, is how many will use this event as a new boating accident. I mean, that's the thing. That's the really cool thing about Bitcoin, is like, who's to say that you don't have access to those keys? There's a lot of plausible deniability that's going to come from shit like this. But it is one of those things where, I live in a pretty rural location here, and there's a highway out to my place, and the highway's terrible. Like they've fixed it pretty much every year. They patched it. They tried doing something last year. It didn't work. We lost it for like 3 months. And it's just like the highway needs to be rebuilt. And that's one thing I keep saying is like, they're not going to rebuild it until somebody dies on this road, until somebody hits a pothole or hits a bump or something. They're not going to repair this highway until that happens. And I just feel like it's the same kind of thing here. It's like, we talk about this stuff all the time. You need to rebuild your road. You need to build your foundation. But until something happens, until somebody goes down the road and crashes their car and dies, you don't do anything about it. And the other layer to that too, like deeper than that, is like, maybe it was somebody who was texting while they're driving. That's the person that paid the price so that it gets fixed. Maybe somebody was drinking and driving. They missed the curve. They died. So then it gets fixed. And it's like the same kind of thing here. It's like the people who had a single sig wallet that they haven't touched in 6 years. Yes, they did things right, but they didn't do enough. And they were the lowest hanging fruit there. They were the person that was distracted or had too many beers. So now we all get to benefit from a new road being built. Unfortunately, you're the one who has to build it for your own life here, but you got to experience that whole thing without you being the one who crashed your car and died so that the new highway could be built. That's just human nature. We don't take action. We procrastinate and procrastinate until there's something like that, a tragedy, devastation, and then finally people take action. So we're all here. We're on the other side of this. We survived that. We drove on that road 1,000,000 times. We didn't die. But now the road's being fixed. We need to fix this road. We need to rebuild it. And you are the one who has to do that. Nobody else.
Yeah.
No Trezor, Ledger, Seed Signer. It's up to you. There's people out there who can help, but you're the one who has to take your time, your money, your whatever, your energy, and focus on this, because it's worth fighting for, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's so true. And I love the car analogies, all that stuff. It makes me think of like the shuttle program, space, all these different things and these accidents, things that happen that no one wants to happen. And you're verifying all kinds of stuff. They're checking things and verifying stuff. And life is life, which is what the beauty of life is, and unfortunately, these things are tough to talk about because everyone's hurting to some degree. So they are very hard to talk about. And, some things are maybe too soon to talk about. And I understand that, I empathize with that. But it's, all these things happen in life. And one of the parts of genius, I think in one of the definitions of genius that I like to think about is learning from other people's experiences, right? Like where it's easy to walk across a road and see someone get hit by a car because they weren't looking, and you learn like right away, like, oh, okay. But it's much harder when it's ephemeral or it's invisible and it's kind of just out there and you're
like a theoretical kind of thing.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
But a level of genius that we can all attain is being able to learn from others' mistakes. So we don't have to experience that pain exactly, or all of that pain. We might experience a little bit of it, but if you can learn from that and level up and accrue that experience onto yourself, man, it's so powerful. And you talk about this all the time, Jory, right? With documents or learnings from across life and how much more you can exponentially grow and how fast you can grow and the speed at which you can grow because you're learning on the shoulders of everything else that's happened in life, the other experiences, the other writings, the other failures, the wins, the losses. So that, again, it's a really important thing to just take going forward as well. And I love, by the way, Sincere Hogan, suckling at the teat is Brandon's new city of London. Yeah. And is that not just apropos what, as everyone knows, I talk about the city of London, but is that not quintessential suckling at the teat of the crown? Clown world, absolute clown world. So you can see my arc, that arc, how it just like, yeah, that makes sense. Yep. City of London, that all making sense, boys and girls. So, anyway, yeah,
it's
perspective.
It sucks. And, this is probably the most, this is the most people we've had in the chat for a while. This is the most comments we've had in the chat in a while.
Yeah.
And it's just like people get complacent.
Yeah, the Bitcast and stuff like that. It's the most people that have ever watched Bitcast, like everything. I mean, it sucks that these are the reasons.
But nobody wants to talk about it until something like this happens, right?
No.
And it's unfortunate, but at the same time, the people who did, even though it wasn't sexy, even though we didn't have a big fancy thumbnail every show, the people that showed up, they have their Bitcoin. And yeah, the product was shitty. Yes, it definitely could have been solved and avoided. But the reality, like Brandon said, we live in a chaotic world, man. Everything's entropy. It's all random. but the best that you can do is the best that you can do. And you have to take this stuff seriously. You have to commit some of your time. I know this, I've said this 1,000 times, but it's the same. It's like the city of London. There's a reason why we repeat these things, because it's easy to hear something, but until you say it over and over and over again, you're like, shit, I should probably do something about this, you know?
Yeah.
And we kind of got forced into taking some action this weekend. A lot of people moved their Bitcoin for the first time, which is fucking crazy to me. It's crazy to me that people needed help moving their Bitcoin after they've had it for years. I get it. You don't want to spend it. That's fine. That's people's own prerogative there. It's like, yeah, they understand what it is. They don't want to, you know, they see it as farmland. They don't want to sell their farmland. I get it. But you still have to put in the reps to understand how you're doing. And there's ways to do it without actually moving Bitcoin, as we talked about at the beginning of the show here today. And I just hope, if nothing else, people are going to take this shit more seriously. I hope that they use more repetition. Brandon mentioned weekly. I think that's a great idea. Doing this weekly, making it part of your routine where you actually sign a transaction. You verify where your 12 words are. You verify where your passphrase is. You turn on your hardware device to make sure it's still intact and it's still working. My Coldcard stopped working last week. Just died. If I didn't have my 12 words, my Bitcoin would be gone.
Yeah.
But people don't know that. A lot of people with a Coldcard think that the fucking Bitcoin is actually stored on their Coldcard. You know what I mean? Like we rushed the not your keys, not your coins. And it was great marketing. And coinkite probably, you know, as many good things and bad things have been said through the years, it's like they marketed that pretty well. They played on people's emotions. That you're an idiot if you don't take self-custody of your Bitcoin. If you don't buy a Coldcard, you're an idiot. And, you know, it's like, maybe that's not the best solution for everybody at this exact moment. You have to be diligent with this whole thing. Very, very diligent, because you're dealing with your whole fucking life's energy here, your life's work. You're setting up here. You're building this. There's no insurance. There's no hotline. There's no anything. It's you. But I think people downplayed what that actually means.
And again, I cannot help but the feeling over the last few years, especially since January 2024, of the ETFs coming in and just complete distraction theater, you know, by everyone, you know, by all of us, you know, every single person in the Bitcoin community, in essence, being distracted again on some type of spectrum, some more than others, obviously, of course, but it's just been distraction. And we've been talking about this for a while.
Even the BIP 110 shit, just a distraction.
Everything a complete distraction from custody, you know, verifying, don't trust, you know, on and on, all the basics, all the things that used to get talked about years ago. So I made the comment about Dylan LeClaire many times over, like, where's the good Dylan LeClaire meme roasting someone, you know, online? Again, the fiat incentives don't allow you to kind of play that game anymore. And, you know, so, you know, here we are getting back to basics and doing stuff that really hasn't been talked about writ large. I mean, obviously there's going to be a person here and there talking about stuff, making some videos, doing some things, clearly, but writ large, I mean, just absent. I mean, no memes. There's no, you know, just the basics, the trust but verify, talking about custody, all these different things at a large scale. Just the community ethos really shifted and lost its way, lost its plot. And so it's not no one's fault. It's not Sailor's fault. It's not anyone's fault. We're all part of it. And again, it's downstream, you know, culture, just like politics. Andrew Breitbart, politics is downstream from culture. You know, that's where we go back to the views on YouTube. It's same thing, right? Like, you can't, as someone creating content, if someone in the chat just goes and creates a YouTube channel today and you just do it on whatever you want, you might have 1 or 2 people watch the video, right? But if you tap into what the zeitgeist wants to hear about, then, you know, so it's politics, YouTube content, all of it is downstream from culture. It's downstream from consensus, actually. So it's not what people think it is. It's actually inverse. And so it's
great point.
It's tough, but here we are, you know, and the humbling. You know, and so this is where the humbling part of stay humble, stack stats, and really getting back to those basics, you know, unifying people, coming back together, maybe haven't talked in a while or whatever it is, and humbling ourselves. And it's just a lesson for all of us. And the more you can learn from other people too, like we said, a level of genius you can attain by not having to step on the landmines yourself. That's not a good way to learn. Learn from what other people are doing.
Yeah. A lot of people were humbled this weekend, that's for sure. Self-included. Self-included.
Yeah, I was.
And you know, I got some work to do today. I'm still in the process of migrating some of my stuff. Thankfully, I had different things in place, like strong passphrases, multisigs. I'm still going to take the precautionary steps of, like Daniel talked about, building a 1,000-year wallet. Like this isn't something you shortcut. You should be moving it temporarily and kind of taking your time with it, making sure that you know what you're doing here. But yeah, you got to be very diligent. And so a couple of things I'll say here just to kind of wrap things up and give you the floor too, Brandon. Number one, I'd say if you do need any help, if you listen for 2.5 hours today and you're still like, I don't really know what I should be doing, find a way to reach out with me. Shoot me an email. I'm happy to set up a call, even if it's 15 minutes long. And we just, I'm not going to charge you X amount of money. I just want to help people. Right. And so if you do need help, find a way to get a hold of me. I'll make myself available this week, next week, whenever it needs to be done. I do these shows every morning. Brandon and I do this show every Monday morning, but I do a live stream every morning talking about this kind of stuff. I have a course that I've been working on for the whole year. We got 12 episodes in there now. It's all based around self-custody and passphrases and leading up to a multisig and all the different components of that. Even if you got the structure over the bones, you still need to know what you're doing with it. So consider join that if you just do want to continuously level up and have people there to surround you, in times like this. You could consider joining our Visionaries group, which, turned out to be a very good investment for people this weekend in a lot of ways. And then we got our BTC mastermind tomorrow, and we're going to have more of that. But like we said, this isn't a real sexy thing, but it is incredibly important for the sovereignty, for what we want to do with Bitcoin here. All this stuff is paramount to know. And build those muscles, man. Nobody's going to build them for you. You have to be putting in the work, taking the time, doing the reps. And then when stuff like this happens, you're not caught off guard by it.
Yeah. So well said. And again, I kind of touched on this earlier too, but I was just kind of putting stuff in the chat here. Just appreciate everyone being here, everyone coming and learning, reigniting the fire, hopefully, the humbling, just everything. And again, I know some people will walk away from self-custody. They'll walk away from Bitcoin. I hope it's a lot less than stay, and I think it will be. However, it's, again, the last person in Bitcoin still wins. That's the beautiful part of Bitcoin. It's so important to zoom out and remember that. Mm-hmm. The standard of living of people going up and then not wanting to go to war with each other or go fight their neighbor, that diminishes greatly as lives get better, because people adopt a truly finite, scarce, decentralized money, and with final settlement, right? So that instant final settlement, I should say. So that's important to remember. And as people leave, again, this will be something that you might not get the Bitcoin purchasing power, because maybe you left the system and you said, I'll be back in 10 years or 20 years. Or maybe you just come back in the system and adopt when the rest of the world's adopting. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. You still win. You will still win, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. The standard of home energy costs way down. Maybe it's free. The world is such a better place, and the standard of living has gone up so much that you still win. But that's the trade-off. And that's why we talk about EQ, because the road to get there, the path is not straight. It is not easy. What's the from the Bible, it's the road is wide, but the gate is narrow. The path is wide, but the gate is narrow, and it's not, the battle is not for everybody. And that's why we talk about loving to battle all the time. My coach in hockey, or my college hockey coach at Michigan State, always used to say, you got to love to battle. You have to love to battle. Hockey's a game of one-on-one battles, winning your one-on-one battle, beating the guy next to you. And in this case, it's your mind, it's your mindset, it's your humility, it's your ego, beating the ego down and humbling yourself. And so we talked about with MVK, and you can be confident, you can be a very confident person, but you don't have to go into arrogance. You don't have to go into a lack of humility. You can be very confident in what you're doing and firm, but also understanding that, hey, I'm not perfect. I'm not God. I'm one man, and I have my faults, and I have my wounds, and I'm not perfect. So I think, again, things to remember, we will all be much better off for this moving forward. And it is great to see a lot of people that we haven't seen before in the community. And a lot of people have been helped as well. And so many people are out there helping. Jor, what you're doing, Rajat, like you said, Forrest, and the BTC mentor crew, Nathan and Ben and their whole team. And there's so many people that are out there. The spaces, I know, Wicked or Rob Hamilton, there's all kinds of people doing stuff 24/7 simulators. Like, you can go on anytime, a space that people do need help, obviously, whether it's these communities, it's live streams, it's spaces. There's all kinds of places to get help, and go, find what you need, which is what we do need, which is the irony of all this, of when there is tragedy and these things happen, that humans come together and unify. And which is also ironically been my thought with AI too. Like, when AI starts really getting out of control, or people always thought like, oh, AI is going to take over. I think humans will come together globally even, and come together and start fighting back, whatever that might be. I don't know what that is exactly, but humans will band together and nip things in the bud before things get out of control completely, whatever that may be. I don't know what that looks like in life, but I've always had that overwhelming sense and feeling. And this is just one little aspect of that, one little corner of the earth right now for the time being, of people coming back together despite differences and helping each other. So just have great hope for humanity. And it's like what Churchill said about America, kind of paraphrasing, like everyone always gets it wrong, except Americans eventually get it right, or something to that effect, right? Like, it was, humanity's kind of that way. Like, we eventually kind of get it wrong, but the arc of life though too is up and to the right, more decentralization, more freedom, higher standards of living, century after century. So, we'll be fine. We're going to be good.
Sats and Sunsets. I saw a comment here from Sats and Sunsets. I shorted him a couple of memberships over on Rumble. So thank you to Sats and Sunsets for the love today, the support. But I did notice this. I moved a bunch of Bitcoin yesterday, and I didn't pay more than one SAP per byte, even with everything going on right now, which I thought I was expecting to be paying more than that. But
it's been like one all weekend, pretty much. Like, I think one or two. Like, it's crazy.
But I mean, it is also the long weekend, right? Like, people are out doing stuff. And that's what part of me thinks, that there is more to the story than we know. Not that it matters, not that I can do anything about it or get anybody's Bitcoin back, but just how everything, the environment right now, it happened on a long weekend where most people were away from their house and away from their devices, didn't have time to act quickly. But again, there's lessons to be learned with all this. And I saw a comment here from Buck52 as well. And it's interesting to me because, like I said, when you turn on your Coldcard, what's the first thing that comes up there? It literally says, "Don't trust, verify." I thought that was the most freaking ironic part of this whole thing, is that's kind of their catchphrase, and we trusted them to generate our private keys with it. So it is. And, you can still have faith in humanity and trust faith, but don't trust anybody. Verify things for yourself. Somebody tells you to do something on YouTube, make sure that you have 2 or 3 or 4 more sources. And that was really the unfortunate thing with this Coldcard, was like, everybody I listened to that I had my faith in, my trust in, they were all saying the same shit. It was always Coldcard. It's the gold standard of hardware devices. And so, even with your best intentions and best efforts, you can still get things wrong. We are human. We're, that's life. But, you learn from it. And I think that's the only thing that you can do, is learn from it, improve. And then when this happens next time, you're going to be sitting with your feet up on the beach saying, I don't care. I got a multisig. I generated all my keys. They're in different spots, no matter what happens. And really, that's been my whole goal with everything that I've been talking about, is get into a situation where that's you. No matter what happens, whether it's a Coldcard, hack, or an exchange hack, or my house burnt down, or there's a flood, I want to be covered against everything. No matter what the piece of news is, I hear it, I'm like, okay, good. Or that sucks for anybody who doesn't, that's what I've always strived to have with my own Bitcoin, is that feeling. And I didn't have it this weekend. I didn't. And it sucked. But, kind of what we've been saying is, like, thank God ours was okay. Everybody we've talked to, their Bitcoin has been okay. Absolutely devastating for the people who, weren't as fortunate. But again, learn from it, proceed, build. And next time this happens, you're going to be in a better spot.
Yeah, and I empathize with Buck and what he's saying there. I understand that, and I understand feeling like that for sure. And whether it's this or other events you see in life, obviously. However, I believe I can disprove that. And we might have talked about this last week. I believe I can disprove that very easily in a second or two. And we don't have Mad Max. Like, humans are created in God's image. They're created good. We're created good. But yet we know good and evil now, right? We know we're outside the Garden of Eden. We know good and evil. So there's always a temptation for human beings. The problem is the incentives are what I have no faith in, right? That's why fiat government currencies are so incredibly insidious and evil, period. Government currencies break multiple 10 of the 10 commandments just by their very existence. That alone it incentivizes the worst qualities in humans. It incentivizes that temptation and puts people at odds with each other. That's why, government currencies are so evil, because they're backed by nothing and they incentivize bad behavior between people. But even saying that, there's hundreds of millions of firearms in this world. There's ill incentives in the money, but still there's not 8 billion people at mass global war all day long killing each other. There's not 10 million murders every single day. So think about that. With all the incentives against you, all of them, we are still not mad maxing right now. So that right there is how I can prove that humans are made good. And I have faith in humanity, because even with all this shit against you, we still aren't doing that. You're going to have pockets, of course, a couple, people in society here and there doing evil things, of course. We all could, but most of us wake up every single day and we choose good. We choose to do good. And so there's, of course, a few bad apples. People fall from the tree. It can happen to anyone and any day. But that's how I can prove that I have faith in humanity and we will be fine.
Amen. Amen. Yeah. And like, this is what I'm talking about. Sin said the way the Visionaries group, which is the community I've kind of been talking about throughout the show today, and a few other came together to help folks get through this over the weekend, actually gives me hope for humanity.
Yeah. Another great example.
Amen to that. And yeah, man. So let's wrap her, because like I said, I got some stuff to do here. I got to take care of my own stuff, but I really wanted to do a stream here today for people. And I guess my parting words today would be, if you haven't already, I'm sure most people already have, but if you haven't, just get it off of your Coldcard, get it in somewhere a little bit safer for now as a temporary solution. Start building your own foundation. Start looking into a multisig. Don't rush into it. But and just be thankful. Be thankful that we're around at this point. Be thankful that we get to go through this and experience this kind of stuff together. Be thankful, like Brandon said, that there are, and Sin said, that there are still so many great people out there who just want this to succeed and each other to succeed. And blaming, name calling, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help anybody else. Focus on what you have going on, strengthen that, make it more robust. And then when this happens in the future, you're going to be the one with your feet up saying, I'm covered. That's your end goal with this. And it takes a lot of time. I'm telling you, for somebody who thinks about the shit all day for the last 3 or 4 years, it takes a lot of work. It's not an easy thing, but those who can get through that are going to be the ones who are rewarded on the other side of this. So thanks everybody for coming by today. Again, I do this show every morning, same time, same place. Brandon and I are part of the BTC Mastermind, which we go live every Tuesday. Brandon's also part of the Bitcast on BTC Sessions. I think they're going live today as well. So just stay informed, but get going. Yeah. I got this sign behind me every day that more so for myself, but it says action cures fear. And that's really what this is. You have to take action. You have to stop procrastinating. You got to build this shit out for the next time that this happens, because this won't be the last time. There's going to be many, many more of these to come. And you just got to be in a better position than you were this time.
Great stuff.
Okay.
Chat, everybody. Jor.
Thanks, Brandon.
Great stuff.
Thanks, everybody. Everybody over on Zapstream. I'm sorry I didn't do much acknowledgement today. Josh, Matt, Let's Faux Live, and Bad Gal B, thanks for the support over on Zapstream. And cheers, everybody. Thanks for being here. We're going to get through this. Oh, and I missed one. We got a rant. A $10 rant over from Sats and Sunsets on Rumble. So just want to make sure I said thanks to anybody who sent in some sats today. We really appreciate it. We appreciate you being here, and we'll talk to you soon.